ahead and get started. The folks who are late will have to walk around.
No.
I need to get a little upset. Oh, yeah. I just wanted to take a minute and thank everybody for coming. This is the monthly update training that we offer, so you will get credit by having signed in for doing one of your 2 update trainings that's required every year. This update training is in direct response to suggestions that we had from counselors that we bring someone from MMAP Inc. in Lansing to do a Q&A on various pieces of Medicaid. We're not going to talk about Medigap Advantage or anything. We're specifically going to talk about Medicaid issues today. And with that, I will introduce, for those of you who don't know, Linda Kushner is the MMAP Inc. Medicaid Specialist. So thank you.
Before you get started, I want to say to the folks out in TV land that this is being recorded, and we hope that you're getting a clear picture. And we're not sure how your call-in audio is going to work, but there is a chat function. So if you put a question in on the chat function, we should be able to get the question. This is our first go-around with this technology, but we're hoping it's going to work. Okay. So now, can you go ahead and switch that to the PowerPoint? I can.
There we go. Okay. Today we're going to be talking about how are we going to best deal with beneficiaries trying to apply for benefits with Department of Health and Human Services. Understanding what it is that they're looking for information and how it is that we're going to best facilitate getting that information to DHS for the beneficiary. Oh, there we go.
Oh, I've got the clicker.
All right. Well, here we go. It's all about me. You got to know a little bit about where I come from. I worked back when it was still called Department of Social Services, and then they changed it to Family Independence Agency, and then the Department of Human Services, and then I went to Department of Community Health, which was absorbed by the Department of Human Services, and now is known as the Department of Health and Human Services. So I've been with this organization, from Department of Community Health, Department of Human Services, since 1978. My baby was just a peanut, so real little one. And I was a caseworker for 9 years, working in Shiawassee and Clinton counties, smaller counties, rural counties that had different, challenges. Sometimes we had migrant populations that needed to be assisted in those counties, so there was certainly different populations. This is kind of a strange thing, but yeah, I wanted to be a Medicaid policy analyst. That meant reading the federal regulations, state law, and then formulating policy for the workers to use in order to determine eligibility. And I did that for about another 9 years. Beyond that, and actually as a result of my interactions with MAP on Medicare Savings Program, the MIPA program, I was invited to be in on some of their meetings, and I have a business card from there, and I went, when I retire, this is one of the organizations I want to work for. And sure enough, back in 2012, that's exactly what I was able to do, and I really do enjoy that. My daughter has accused me of never going to be retired, so I'm not sure, but we'll see. Most of what I do is Medicare Savings Program. We do, and I was telling earlier here that Medicare Savings Program, those problems that have risen to my level just since probably about the 1st of June, we've recovered benefits for our beneficiaries just what I over $100,000. We have one Medicare Savings Program beneficiary that we were able to recover over $5,000 worth of Part B premiums for them because they had never been processed since they became eligible in 2014. Okay, so huge difference for these people. So Medicare Savings Programs certainly one of them. Medicaid eligibility. Individuals who contact me and say, I applied and I'm looking at their circumstances and I'm going, you should be eligible. Okay, so then we start working with that. I also help with prescription drug plans, Medicare, anything Medicare. I've done pretty much anything from air ambulance from Florida to Michigan and getting a claim at least reviewed by Medicare, and because then we've got multiple states, and of course, you know, medical necessity and so on. And then the last one, you know, kind of everything else. So whenever there's an issue that is a little more complicated, it usually lands on my desk. So that's what that's all about. Okay, next thing. What about you? What I would like for all of you to be working on as a process is that, first of all, if you have a question, a problem, a concern, it really needs to be directed to either a site coordinator or your regional coordinator, whichever one is accessible, and ask them. They very well may know what it is that the problem is and how it needs to be addressed. And so if you can't, you know, if the site coordinator is not available, the site coordinator or the site coordinator doesn't know, move it forward. They'll move it forward, and if it gets to the point where it still needs my attention, then the regional coordinator can contact me. And one thing I think is most important here is that everybody learns what it is that's going on, because if by the time it gets to me and I respond, I can say, well, this is what we had to do. Then at that point, you can get back, you know, and you go, okay, so the next time this happens, then you know what approach to take. It also reduces the number of contacts with the MAP staff. So instead of having George and Milana, all these people calling me up and everything about their individual cases, if I have one person giving me, it just makes it that much easier for me to manage that. And believe it or not, I actually get a lot of calls that come through the hotline because they may be adult children who live in another state, who are concerned about a parent living here. They are people who have their cell phone from still the other other place where they used to live, so they are just having some problems. And we, rather than just, you know, shuffle them around, we usually like to try and handle it for them there. So, all right. I also have, and my advantage here too is the fact that I have a lot of contacts still at the Department of Health and Human Services, and I'm not, you know, ashamed to go and ask for help. So that would be that. All right, next slide. Oh, okay. How to apply. Health and Human Services is that there isn't one size fits all, because there's a number of different ways that we can assist a beneficiary with an application, whether it be with My Bridges. I've done the My Bridges. It's been a long time, but you know, because I just don't have that much in-person traffic through the Lansing office, so I don't usually have to do that. If I talk to them over the phone, I might say, well, I'll send you an application, or I'll send you a link to the application, or for them the option of doing the My Bridges themselves. A lot of times, though, we got seniors, they don't have a computer, they can't afford a DSL or internet Wi-Fi service, so I mean, it's really not an option for them. This I like, and I think this is something that the next one there that you need to make note of, is that they can call. If it's for Medicaid only, there's a toll-free number that they can call, and there's a live body there who is going to take the information. Now, this is not going to eliminate you know how people, does anybody know what I mean by the DHS 1004 supplemental questionnaire? Okay, well, we'll have to get into that. That is a separate form that gets sent to beneficiaries. It doesn't eliminate the need for that, okay? But it does allow them to file an application that day. So think about somebody today who might be, let's say, had a medical expense in March. How important would it be for them to get an application filed this month? Be very important. Because otherwise, if we wait until July, or we put an application in the mail to them, they fill it out and then send it in, when's it gonna get there? July, okay? So if they go back 3 months from July, we can't give them eligibility for the month that they had that medical expense, okay? So keep that in mind, application. At least it sets an application date for them. DHS 1171, the big application we used to call it, used to be a pretty lavender color. They had taken it away, or I shouldn't say taken it away, they had limited the scope of what the DHS 1171, which is just the regular assistance application for multiple programs, okay? I think it's in your area agency packet towards the back there. So what they would do is they had it for a number of years so that you could apply for medical assistance, cash assistance, food assistance, child care. All of those programs were one application. And then when the Affordable Care Act came through and Medicaid expansion, they couldn't do that. They had to revise this. So that's why they used the short application, the DCH 1426, the application for health coverage and health paying costs. If you had had a chance to go into the Marketplace website, you'll see that this is the application they use. They personalized it just for Michigan. So that's that one. But this application here is the one that they have recently revised, and now we can use it for everything. Now, I know that our emphasis is not necessarily on helping them apply for anything but Medicare Savings Program or Medicaid, but certainly if we've got somebody that we can assist at the same time by filling out a couple more pages, I would hate to say, we're going to help you with Medicaid today, but you got to come back and see somebody else or go to DHS and apply for food assistance. I have a problem with that. But that's certainly not the emphasis of our organization. The 1426, like I said, that's the application that was part of the Affordable Care Act, would be this handout that you had gotten. It's got the appendixes in the back for the Flint Water Group, that kind of thing, so that you have to fill out the first part and then fill out the appendix that matches the plan that you're wanting, that kind of thing. And one other thing that I think is a huge benefit is the retroactive Medicaid application. How many of you use that on a regular basis when you're assisting a beneficiary with Medicare Savings Program or Medicaid?
Well, you told us to use it when you were here in April, but what you didn't really tell us is how to fill it out.
What? I missed that?
So when people ask me how to fill it out, I don't really know what to tell them.
We will go through that. Right now, I wanna save that for the end when we've gone through some of the tips and best practices, but we will go through this. And that is one of the things that we would be talking about, is that this retroactive Medicaid application is going to be so valuable. For your Slim-Bees and Alm-Bees, you just gave them $402 by filling out this form. This is worth $402 for them. So this is a substantial amount of money by filling out this form, and we will go through that. Okay? Next slide. The My Bridges system, and I don't know if you've been out there. I went into the DHS website yesterday, and there are actually a couple of different places where you can go My Bridges. The one place takes you to the old My Bridges. Don't go there. My understanding is if you go in there, it'll let you do an application, but it goes into no man's land, so it's of no use to you.
How do we know it's always,
The new bridges will actually be a light blue, pretty colors, more, I want to say more cartoonish, in the fact, the other is that dark blue heading at the top and that kind of thing. It's a matter of when, you do the My Bridges application, what you're going to end up doing, and it doesn't redirect you, and that was the thing that concerned me. I actually went back to the front page, and when I went back to the front page, it had the My Bridges icon on there, and that's the one that takes you to the current one.
But this one, whichever gives us the receipt at the end when you file and
Yeah,
submit
both
it.
of them do it.
Oh, both of them will do?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the questions for the people who are out there so they can hear what was asked?
The question was they wanted to use the one that would give you a receipt for the application, and both of them would have done it and would do it. It's just a matter of the old My Bridges will not, it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to do anything. I think after the date I read was sometime in May. It says after May, such and such date, don't use this because it's not going to be functional. Okay.
Why don't they just take it away?
I don't know why they didn't, but like I said, I found two of them. One of them has the dark blue heading on it. The other one is light blue, and it talks about community partners, that kind of thing. I did give you the website that for the My Bridges. It should take you to that pretty one. Okay.
And for the folks that are out there, I know that we're having a little problem with this. Some of you can't see the video. We're waiting for IT that is on its way to fix this. Meanwhile, you do have the PowerPoint and a handout, or you should have it to follow along. I know that's not the best of circumstances, but we are working to, this is our first go-around. We're working to get it fixed for you.
Okay. I have a question here.
Okay, so my question is that, if you go, one of the back slide that you just came from, you stated what's that?
The 1426, the DCH application for health care coverage?
Yes, that form, that application. I was informed by the Macomb County that they're no longer accepting that and that we have to use the newer version. So I'm confused. Is it possible? Can we still use that, or do we have to go with that?
This form has not been obsoleted.
Oh, okay.
There is nothing invalid about the DCH 1426. If you have a local office who is refusing to take this particular form, I need to know about it. So please pass the information to the site coordinator and let them know, so that I can get a hold of Lansing and let them know they are refusing to take this application. Because let's say if I had a purple colored old application, technically they cannot even refuse an obsoleted application, because what it does is it sets your date. Now they can send you the new application that needs to be completed, okay? Because the obsolete form might not have questions on it that are pertinent to determining eligibility, but they can't refuse it as an application or a request for assistance, okay? So it sets a date, if nothing else. But these are not obsolete. These are not something that they should be refusing. I have no idea why they're doing it. What county is that?
Macomb.
Macomb. Send an email to the site coordinator. Let the site coordinator know so they can follow up with me. I will send it over to them and tell them that as a practice, Macomb County is no longer accepting. Now, is that particular district in Macomb County?
I guess, yes, it's one of the offices. I'm not for sure. I have to ask my coworker because she assists me with another program, and a lot of her consumer clients, they would sit that they're no longer accepting that they have to fill out this application.
Okay. So in that situation, there shouldn't be a refusal to take any application. whether the form has been obsoleted or not. That is part of the federal requirements, especially for Medicaid, because what the federal government does not want is for anybody to have a barrier to applying for Medicaid. Okay. Now, the other programs I don't really care about so much. I'm only concerned about Medicare.
Okay.
How it applies to food stamps, how it applies to child care, that's different. But for Medicaid, I know that the federal government requires that there be no barriers. That's why there's, you can go to call on the phone and apply, why you can fill out a paper application and apply, and those kinds of things. They just don't want any barriers for someone. One of the issues with the MyBridges system is the fact that you have to set it up with a password and a user ID, and then you've got secret questions, yep. And so it's a matter of you got somebody there in your office and you're doing all of this and they're going, I'm never going to look at it again. But at the same time, the accomplishment here is that you've got the application in, okay, and that you made the initial request for assistance, so that in the future, okay, you are going to have had that locked in date. If they don't get into it again, that's fine. It just means that the next time that they come in, as long as they bring that information in with them, then we can look at it again if we wanted to bring up old correspondence and that kind of stuff. They can use it to manage their case. We got some of our baby boomers that are aging into Medicare and looking at Medicare Savings Program eligibility. They may be very well computer savvy. They probably have already got, a printer, a scanner, and all that other good stuff. It gives them a chance to upload documents, do things like that. Okay? So there are some advantages. Is that going to work for everybody? No. Okay? So it just depends upon the individual. Next slide. Okay, phone application, like I said. This is actually technically for those beneficiaries that are already determined disabled, okay, and they're getting Social Security, but they're not qualified for Medicare yet. We might help them apply for Healthy Michigan Plan, okay? So Healthy Michigan Plan, they could even go so far as to just call that number. There's no asset qualification, and it's a declaration of what they have for income. Okay. The thing with that is, as much as it seems, well, gee whiz, they're not really asking for any documentation. The reason for that is that they've got data exchanges that they can pull up information on. So if somebody's getting unemployment and not reporting it, they'll find it. Okay. If they're getting some other source of income, they'll find it. I had a beneficiary, and it was all very innocent. His daughter had put his name on an account, so that in the event that he needed to have something extra that was over and above what they could afford, she wanted him to have access to the account because they had their banking accounts in the same financial institution. And so that was fine until they did the scan, and they found that his name is on an account that had $16,000 in it. Now, this wasn't something he was going into and pulling money from, but the daughter wanted to make sure that DHS understood, said, yes, I put my father's name on there so that he'd have access to whatever he needed. Now, needless to say, the case is closed. They're working on getting the name off of the account, and so that, and I kind of advised him, what's better here is if you have a need, have the daughter, go on Amazon and order it and have it shipped to your house, or if they need to pay a utility bill for you, have them call up the utility and pay it directly out of their account, just because of the fact that then there's no, let's say, no need to track payments back and forth, resources back and forth. So it's just easier not to do something like that.
When you say health care coverage, are you talking about the medical savings or just Medicaid?
Well, it's potentially both, okay? The Healthy Michigan Plan is really kind of what we're talking about here with that applying on the phone because it is so easy. There's no forms to fill out, nothing. But they aren't going to get MSP yet until they hit the 24-month waiting period, okay? And they qualify for Medicare at that point. Then we become worried about Medicare Savings Program and continuing Medicaid.
But if somebody's already on Medicare and you think they might qualify, could they call this number?
Yes. You can still call that number for the Medicare Savings Program.
What is this call line?
I have no idea. I have not tried it, but I have not had anybody that I referred to it call me back and say nobody answered. Okay? So, yes.
Anybody can use this, not just disabled people.
Anybody.
There's microphones on your tables, if you can all try talking to them, because we're just trying to make sure that everybody out there can hear the questions too.
So anyone who's interested in applying can use the phone number to apply.
There is no requirement that when you call up that phone number to apply for a Medicare Savings Program, Healthy Michigan, any other of the 30 Medicaid categories that Michigan has. There's no requirement that you have a special need in order to apply. And in fact, if you look at the application for healthcare coverage and paying costs, way down at the bottom, and they're not, they're a little, I don't want to say deceptive, but it says visit our website, and then it says phone, call our application helpline, okay? That just is like, oh, well, okay, if I'm having a question about applying with this, I can call them. It's also to make an application. So it's a little bit, yeah, crazy. Yeah. Go ahead. Behind you.
Okay.
All right, so they still need to submit the supporting documentation.
Right.
So do they still get the letter in the mail that says we need to see your this, you know?
Yes. Okay. The question here is if there's supporting documentation as proof of eligibility is necessary, they still have to send you the verification checklist with a due date and exactly what it is that they need for verification. And at that point, it's still going to be the obligation of the individual to get that in. It doesn't change that whole process. The only one that I know of that kind of slides right on through is the Healthy Michigan Plan. And that would be for those people in the 24-month period.
Does live, that person give a verification number or ID to the person to let them know that they have something to verify that that application was made on that date?
Okay, the question is whether the person at the hotline number to make an application would get any kind of confirmation number or application number. I really can't say to that because I've not, again, had feedback and I've not called it myself. You know, it's kind of one of those things that sometimes I want to go onto My Bridges and put information in there to make up a fake person just so I can see how it works. Yeah. You know, but that would be kind of what I would be doing with that, and I hesitate to do something like that to waste somebody's time. But yet at the same time, it is a situation where it would be nice to know, but I don't have that inside information to know if that's a confirmation. I would imagine that there is something like that, much like you get a T number. When you do the My Bridges application, you get the T number. So I'm guessing that they probably do, but that's all it would be at this point is a guess. Yes.
Okay. So I don't know if this is the right time to ask this, but I'm going to ask it. I have this client. He's already in the system. He's got a My Bridges card, but I think he might qualify for more benefits. But, you know, he doesn't have a computer. He gets kind of confused. But whenever I go over to try and help him, you know, he'd leave a message and I call him back in 2 or 3 days. He doesn't know the questions to ask, that whole thing. Mm-hmm. When I'm with him, can I call this directly? And even though he's already in the system, they could help look at some.
The only good to do it with Medicaid. That's the only thing that number is good for.
So
if you got, like, if you're wanting to help, well, let's say food assistance, they can't do anything with food assistance.
Or medical savings.
Medical savings, they could.
They could.
Okay.
Okay.
But I don't. The one thing here is we've got something that's going on here with the transition of counties into the universal caseload. Now, I don't know if there's any pilot counties in this area or not. I know there are in some areas like Shiawassee County, is it Livingston, Shiawassee and Livingston that are together? I think Shiawassee and Livingston County are together, and I think that they are pilot counties for this universal caseload. So, you know, I would be maybe a worker who would do nothing but new applications. And then, got another, 3 or 4 workers that do nothing but phone calls. And they just take general phone calls. Then we got another one that, takes address changes and changes within the group. So somebody moves out, somebody moves in, then they handle that change. But that's the kind of thing that they are eventually working to. Because of the fact that there's an electronic case file, they can see what's there. It used to be paper, big paper folders, just like you would expect to see in any file cabinet back when I was a worker. So if I wanted to, you know, pass the case on to somebody else, I had a physical case that I had to mail to another county and wait for the mail to deliver it and the worker to look at it, you know, that kind of thing. So it could take a week to 10 days for somebody could look at it again, because all they could see on there was, yeah, they're eligible. But now the systems are changing substantially. Next slide.
Linda, just excuse me for asking. I find that the online application form is much lengthier than the ordinary.
You mean the form itself?
My bridges, I seem to be taking so much time. This is nothing.
Okay, the comment here is the application for healthcare coverage and health with paying costs is more cumbersome. Now, keep in mind, what I printed off is just the application portion, not the rights and responsibilities or all of that good stuff. But that is what was on the system yesterday. Okay, so if they copied off the whole thing, and I don't know, I'll let you look at mine and see if you notice any change, but that is the sum total of what that DCH or the DCH 1426 or the Medicaid only application looks like.
Linda, can I ask one more question before you switch to this slide?
Yes.
You have an address here. That address does not appear here on the new form. It says, submit this form by mail or bring it into a local office.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says, submit your application and it will be sent to your local office. Now, that address used to be on the old form. I couldn't find it on here, so my question is, I'm just telling people, take it to your local office, because I don't know what else to tell them, whether they've changed that or not.
No, as far as I know, there has been no change in where an application can be mailed. Because the address on this slide for the DHS 1171 or the big Medicaid application is actually what they call the central scan center. So it's a central processing. So if I were to send in my redetermination, in fact, if you've seen the redetermination notices, and you help them fill it out, you'll notice it'll be that P.O. box for Royal Oak, okay? It's not going to be the county office. It's not going to be the Lansing office. It'll all go there. They have people that are just sitting there all day long, keying stuff in and adding it into the electronic case file.
So they just sort of are tricking us by not putting that.
Yeah.
They send it to DHS, but they don't tell you where.
Well, and I think part of that is the fact, and I having done these revisions, it costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to revise a form, okay? And especially one as detailed and as long as the application, the 1171. And so what they end up doing is, if there's something, let's say the post office box were to change to 9469, then all of the applications have got the wrong information on it, okay? So, but at the same time, that's still a valid address at this point, okay? So you can still send it. Again, it's a matter of they don't want there to be any barriers. If you mail the application, you can mail it to the local office. You can mail it to the post office box. You can fax it to either one, okay? So,
But online applications will go there. All the online applications, where will they go?
here, My Bridges, it just goes directly into the system. At that point, they are routed back to the county office and assigned to a worker, okay? So it's not a matter of, there's somebody, yeah, I like this one, we're gonna take it over to here. No, all just kind of, they look at the address and zip codes, and it's just kind of whoosh. And it's in that district office, it's in that county office, and from there you have staff that will assign based upon who's taking applications that particular day. Okay. All right, the 1171, that is the link. And I know this is fresh information, because I just did this yesterday. So, the information is the most current that I can find. It is available in English, Arabic, and Spanish, and that's true with the My Bridges as well. And that's because of the fact that what the federal government requires the state of Michigan to do is actually to look at the population that they have, and if there's a population that's over a certain percentage within the state, they have to make forms and applications available in that language to them. Okay, so that's why we have those three main languages, because they're the ones that meet that percentage. I want to say it's like, 15, 20%, something like that. It's been a long time since I've been in that discussion, but it's a percentage of the population. And like the any paper application, it can be hand delivered. I can walk into a Department of Health and Human Services office, and I can give them that form, whether it's the form they like to see or the form that I have, okay? But I have the right to be able to take and give to the DHS office my application the same day. They can't say, well, we're not taking that application today. If you'll come back next week, we'll be glad to take care of you then. No, you have the right to apply that day. Okay, and we could get into a lot of the, I'll just ask this real quick. How many of you know anything about Bridges Eligibility Manual or Bridges Administrative Manual, the DHS manual? It's actually what the caseworkers use. Yeah, we're gonna cut off your supply to that. It's a matter of, that is actually what the workers are to be using, and what is supposed to be built in to the underlying tables that determine the eligibility within the Bridges system. So, like for instance, it knows that if you're over 65, that they're not going to look at Medicaid for healthy kids. Okay, so those are all the decision tables that are built into that, and so part of that is because of those manuals. There are a number of different manuals that apply to that, and I will be talking about one in particular, and I hope it's a helpful citation for you. But basically, it's a situation whereas that's how the department is required to operate, the Bridges Administrative Manual. What is it that they have to give you notice of? If I'm taking away your benefits, can I do it the same day and you're just are going to be clueless? Absolutely not. Federal government requires that a notice be sent and that you have a time to make a correction or to dispute it and provide verification, and then have your eligibility continue. It also gives you a right to a hearing if you want to request a hearing during that time frame. So there's a lot of things that are in that Bridges Administrative Manual that are important to how we help individuals. And like I said, we will deal with that. One question, Marilyn.
For hand delivery, can they give you a confirmation or something that, yes, you handed it in?
Okay. The question is if we have somebody who is hand delivering an application to the Department of Health and Human Services, the one thing is they aren't going to give you a confirmation number. The best I would expect that any Department of Human Services is going to give you is if you go in there with 2 copies and you ask them to date stamp your copy and take that with you, because that is your proof that you were in that day and that was the form that you dropped off. It does happen. I've seen applications fall into a black hole. I'm still not sure where they're going, but at the same time, I know it happens. But it's a matter of, that's the one way to cover. Usually now in all the DHS offices, they have a photocopier in the lobby. If the beneficiary doesn't have access to one, or you didn't see the client, so you didn't have a chance to copy it before you let them take the application, doesn't matter. There should be one in the lobby for them to use.
And you could take it to any office?
Technically, yes.
Okay.
Technically, yes. In fact, we have, and that's true for Medicaid, okay? And that is because, let's say, I know this has happened. We have some organizations that actually help hospitals and doctors recover medical expenses, whether it be through traditional health insurance or eligibility for Medicaid, that kind of thing. And these organizations get a cut of the money, okay? They're not doing it for free. And so what they do is their offices, let's say, are in Grand Rapids, but they've been contacted by someone who lives in Traverse City because they're the ones that's got the hospital bill. The hospital out there in Traverse City says, we need you to work with this beneficiary. And so they work with that person to help them fill out an application, put all the verifications together. They're not going to go back up to Traverse City and drop off the application. They're going to drop it off at the DHS office in Kent County. When they get it there, it's registered in, but at that time, it's electronically now just sent to Traverse City to complete the determination. So they're going to send it. Yes.
Can they drop it off if it doesn't have a client signature on it?
You can drop it off, but it's not valid because it's not going to. The only thing it's going to do is say that they have a request, because it doesn't become an application until it's signed. Okay, so an unsigned application is incomplete and will not be treated as an application until there is a signature on it. So therefore, it won't do anything except show that someone has requested assistance. Okay, and so once the completed application is received, then they can move forward with that. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we talked about hand-delivered mail, fax to the local office. One of the things that I can tell you is that certainly we know about the fax for the Central Scan Center, and you can send it there. One of the things that I would tell you to do is just to be very careful about the fact that you have identification on the application every page. And in fact, let me see here. Oh, it's on the new application, the 1171 for all programs. Down at the bottom, you'll be able to see case number and ID number or case name. What I would tell you is, well, for somebody who's not been on any benefits before, put their name, their date of birth, something on there, because let's say if they scan one page, you want to make sure that it can be connected with the next page, and the next page, and the next page. So even though it seems redundant, put it on all pages, okay, so that it can be connected. Or you can fax it to the DHS office, and I can tell you that if you wanted to be really outgoing here, they don't like it, but that's too bad. You can actually go to the DHS home site, and over on the right-hand side, there's a couple of tabs, and if you hit, I think it's the farthest, if you hit that tab down, it'll say county offices. And if you hit that, it'll take you to like a map of Michigan, and you click on the county that you want to work with, and then it'll bring you up the information about who the director is in the office, the address of the office, the phone number, and the fax number. Okay, so technically, even an application faxed to the local office is the same as making an application to the Central Scan Center. It doesn't change. Okay. An application received technically in any DHS office becomes an application the day it's received, whether it's at the right place or not for Medicaid. Okay? Next slide. Okay. This is my advice on the 1171. As a caseworker, if you were to go through here, and I'm just going to try and see if I can find something real quick that will be an indicator. Let's go to page 4 of the DHS 1171, and let's say I'm filling this out, and I don't have a vehicle. Okay, that center questionnaire says vehicles. Does anyone in your household own a vehicle? Well, no, I don't own a vehicle. Don't skip it. answer it no. If it doesn't apply, answer it no. The assumption cannot be if the question is blank, that it doesn't apply to them. Okay, you have to say no. Okay, so make sure that there are no blanks. If it doesn't apply, the answer is no. And if you think that there's a question or a concern, back in the back of the application notes page, that's where you can fill in and say, on page 3, household details, question number or whatever, and make an explanation. This is for you too. This isn't just for the worker, okay? This is how you can explain what's actually going on in this particular group that might be unique and change how they would determine eligibility. Yeah.
That example that you just gave on page 4, at the top, it says healthcare only applicants should skip this page unless disabled or in need of long-term care services. So does that mean that I don't have to answer no and all?
Yes, you do have to answer it because and I don't know why they say unless disabled or in need of long-term care services, because in that situation, it applies to Medicare Savings Program, it applies to AdCare, it applies to every other Medicaid category that is for a disabled person or those over age 65, because we have to determine asset eligibility in order to do that. These are poorly put together, because the assumption here is everybody's just getting what we call the MAGI Medicaid categories. These are for family groups where they're using the modified adjusted gross income for a tax group, not for seniors, okay? So again, anything that has, any time we're looking at over 65, whether it's Medicare Savings Program or Medicaid, we're going to need to fill out everything about assets. Checking accounts, vehicles, that kind of thing. So even though it says, unless you're disabled or wanting nursing home care, you still need to fill it out, okay? Regretfully, it's badly.
What's the highest amount of the vehicle to have to be eligible for Medicaid?
You can have one vehicle totally excluded. Maserati, totally paid for, doesn't matter whether you can get into it or not, okay? If you have one car and your only car is worth $50,000, it's an excluded vehicle.
Yeah. This information about the year of the make and the mileage and.
That would apply for other programs such as food assistance, because there, you get down into whether when there's multiple vehicles, then the first one may be totally excluded, but then the second one is only excluded to a certain extent, okay? So you got to keep in mind, this is not just for Medicaid, it's for all programs. So they're trying to glean information for all programs, even though it doesn't apply to Medicaid necessarily. Fill it in, humor them, whatever, okay? Let's see. I think that the biggest point here I wanted to make is that there is a need for every application to be filled out. Now, the trick here is, how many of you do MIPA work? Any of you do MIPA work? Oh, it's her again. Okay. Right now, it's a situation whereas when you're doing healthcare coverage, again, what's confusing is you think you've got the application all filled out, right? And you get to the notes page, voila, I'm done, right? No, there are 4 pages after that that have healthcare coverage information that are necessary that have to go with it. Otherwise, they just got an application, but they don't know what it is necessarily that you're applying for, other than the fact that I think they're in the front where you give the household members detail. It says healthcare, circle the ones that you're requesting for each individual. That's how they're going to know, but they can't determine the eligibility because they still need this information. So the icon to look for here when you're doing the application on the front is you see the healthcare coverage icon, the little heart with the blip through it. Okay, every page in the back that has that on there needs to go with it.
What's MIPA?
Huh?
What's MIPA?
Oh, if you don't work with it, don't worry about it.
Maybe I'm supposed to work with it.
No,
We just did, last month, our training was on MMAP, so if you go to YouTube.
I wasn't here.
And
there you
if
go.
you go to our YouTube channel, you can watch the training on MMAP, that's
Yeah.
20 minutes
They just
long.
answer that.
I don't know how to get
Goes
to
on and
YouTube.
on the form,
so.
right? That goes on like.
And you tell us, fine. Yes, question?
On the healthcare page two of the healthcare coverage, application under tax filer, most of my clients don't know how to answer if they're gonna file a federal tax return next year, they may not know. So,
Okay, household member, you're saying?
under tax filers, healthcare coverage, page two,
Second page.
Okay, so with the,
filers,
okay, let me get these things here.
yes, page two, under tax filers.
Okay, healthcare coverage,
At the top, tax filers.
okay, okay. Does anyone okay, and again, keep in mind, this is for all other programs. And, so this is actually the one that is looking for that household group with dependent children, for that, what the Healthy Michigan Plan, the MAGI category. At this point, it doesn't really matter whether they answer yes or no, because they're not gonna look at the taxable information or tax filing information to determine eligibility. They're gonna look at today's snapshot, okay? So at this point, if you answer no, it's not gonna change the eligibility because of the fact that they are not going to be looking at all at whether they filed a tax return or not to determine eligibility, okay?
And then on page three, under where it says healthcare coverage, does anyone need help paying for medical bills in the past 3 months? So if you knew that they were MSP eligible and you wanted to go retroactive, would you put that in? Maybe they have no other bills.
Now you're stealing my thunder here. That's for later. That's when we review the form. So we'll get to it. Okay, we'll get to it. All right. Next one. Next slide.
Then that's just what the taxes. If the person who's eligible for Medicaid, let's say he has a low income, we are saying this person has no assets. Suppose he's being, he doesn't pay, somebody else in the household takes him on his, files for him. And if their income is very high, will his income will become a deemed income?
Nope. Okay, the question here is, let's say, and I would say more commonly, this is going to be a senior adult
Yes.
living with an adult child.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
And so at this point, the son can claim income taxes as a dependent. That's fine. It doesn't change anything, because once you hit 65, you become a group of one. It doesn't matter whether you live with, your whole family,
Okay.
or if you live with a neighbor, a good friend. They can claim you on taxes, but it has no effect on how DHS should be looking at the eligibility for that senior.
So that person, when he claims you as a dependent, he gets benefits from the government. He gets
Right,
money.
they do get a
Then you're
benefit.
dipping on both.
But now, if the son were to apply, okay, for medical assistance, the other hook is that then that would scoop the dad in. Let's say the dad or the mom had the income or the assets. Because they claim her as a dependent, that means that that'll bring her into the group, and it could change their eligibility. Now, that's when it's going to change eligibility, not when you are the parent living with the child, the adult child. It's when the child is applying, and then because you do consider them a tax dependent, then that's how they get sucked in. It changes the son's eligibility, not the parent. Okay? Because it's always the adult and the adult spouse. It doesn't matter, even if you had a dependent child. Let's say I adopted a child. Not that I'm going to, but I adopt a child. They're 13 years old, okay? At that point, I could actually go ahead and say this is my dependent, but if I'm going in and applying for Medicaid to get my Part B premium paid for, that adult child, or that 13-year-old child is a dependent, but she's not part of my group. What they do for children in that situation is they allow part of my income to be given back to them because they know I've got to pay to have that child be housed and fed and clothed. So they have what they call, now we get into this, I can't think of the term. But it's a way of diverting some of my countable income in order for them to determine my eligibility. So let's say it's $300 that I can allocate, that's the word, allocate to that child. A 13-year-old gets $300 of my income. That means instead of counting 1,200, they're going to count 900 for me. But I only have a group of 2 still, or a group of 1, because of the fact that it's never more than the spouse and the individual. Okay, so that's as big a group as you're going to have. We're talking about Medicare Savings Program and Medicaid.
2 parents have a totally disabled paraplegic son.
Mm-hmm.
Their income, some of it is diverted.
No,
It is.
not if you have an adult child. They can claim the adult child, mom and dad, okay, have an adult child who lives in their home who is disabled. Mom and dad are applying for Medicare Savings Program or Medicaid.
For the son, for the child.
For the child. Mom and dad's income is not part of the son, okay? And neither is the son's income and assets part of the parent. There are 2 groups. There, mom and dad, or the parents, as one group, husband and wife, and then you have the adult child in a totally separate group. Doesn't matter, mom and dad could have won the lottery, $1 million in the bank, it doesn't matter. The son has $2,000 in their bank account, they're a separate group. We're not going to suck mom and dad in there.
This is only, when it relates to only to Medicaid. I mean, Medicaid or Medicare. It doesn't, because according to taxes, it becomes a household expense, which means that.
Well, no, not technically. If I'm filing taxes, my son does not have to apply or be a tax dependent of mine. He can be his own tax group, okay? That has nothing to do with any of the Medicaid that we're talking about here, okay? So anytime we're talking about a disabled individual, an individual over age 65 or older, we're talking about the husband, the wife, and we're talking about any minor dependent children that there might be in the home. Maybe they've adopted grandchildren, which is also an option or a possibility. But at the same time, it is not definitely a situation where, well, they count them as a tax dependent, so there we go, everybody comes in there. No, we're not looking at tax groups for that particular group because of the fact that their eligibility is not based on tax group. It's only those that are the family group. Under 65, not disabled, minor children, pregnant women. Those are what we call the MAGI category. And it is based upon how they file taxes and who's in their tax group. But once you know, it's like, now that we're talking MAP, we're right here, 65, disabled, that's it. We're not looking at the tax group, okay? Let's see, can you give me our slide back? Okay. In that 1426 is broken down into several things here. You're talking about, tell us about yourself. You're usually what in DHS lingo they call the grantee. You're going to be the one person responsible for the Medicaid case. So there's a change in your household, you're the one that's going to be asked to report that change. Tell us about your family, all right, who's in that group. Now, in that situation where we have a multi-generation home, because of the fact that you're not applying for Medicaid for the other members of the home, and they're not group members, you don't need to fill in the son, the daughter-in-law, the 3 grandkids. You don't have to do that. Mom, dad, individual, doesn't matter. They're the only ones that you're going to be adding information on. Because it doesn't matter whether they live in the home or not. We don't look at whether they're being subsidized somehow you know, like SSI. For somebody on SSI, if they live with parents and the parents don't charge anything for rent, Social Security looks at it as a subsidy and reduces the amount of money that they get each month. Medicaid doesn't distinguish that, okay? They're looking strictly at the income and the assets of the individual, okay? Whether it's a single person or a married couple. Personal information, that's the step 4 in that application.
So when it asks how many people are living in this home, can you just suppose you ask there one person to say a widowed mother who's living in a family of 8 and they're only applying for this widowed lady, can I write say how many people are in this home? Can I write 1 or should I write 8?
No, I would write 1 because the home in this situation equates to group. Okay? It's a matter of you got one person in the group, and again, it's the policy that doesn't draw them in because they aren't tax filers and they are an independent group, regardless of who they live with. It doesn't matter whether son goes and buys all the groceries and everybody eats out of the same thing. If I'm talking about food stamps, totally different, okay? But when I'm talking about Medicaid, there is no responsibility for a child, an adult child, to take care of a parent's medical care, okay? Unless they happen to be in that first 5 years of residency in the United States, and that's what they're contracted to do because of the fact that they signed that agreement that says we're going to take care of them during that first 5 years. That's why nobody gets benefits during that first 5 years because somebody has sponsored them to come to the U.S. and that's what they said they're going to do. Yes, question.
Adult, disabled, Medicare, adults, living with a significant other and their child. You only put the adults applying.
Okay.
Even though the others may be providing income to that house. Right. So I understand.
Okay. The question.
Food stamps, will it be different?
Food stamps is totally different. So in this situation here, his example was, we have an adult disabled person who lives with a significant other. And keep in mind, Michigan does not recognize the common law, thank you, common law marriage. So unless there's a legal relationship between that disabled person and the significant other, such as a marriage license or certificate, then there is no legal responsibility between the two. And her dependent child, he's not responsible for the dependent child, and she's not responsible for the disabled person, okay? So it's still a situation where that disabled person, if we're looking at Medicaid, is a group of 1. Doesn't matter that they live with a girlfriend, that the girlfriend works at, you know, and more. You know, doesn't matter.
In the clothing department.
Totally excluded from his eligibility.
Yeah.
Question.
You just mentioned that first 5 years of someone come from different country,
Right.
that somebody is sponsoring. So if the person is sick and visit emergency case, is that the Medicaid, the social worker can work on the Medicaid for them? But just only for that visit, right? After
Correct.
you come out, there's no longer Medicaid available for
Yeah.
them.
And this is probably, it could happen, it doesn't happen very often. I probably did eligibility for maybe a handful of people in what we call emergency services only Medicaid. It is a situation where somebody who is here legally, but has not yet met the residency requirement of 5 years, they qualify or potentially qualify to have Medicare or Medicaid in called emergency services only. Now, and the federal government defines that as something life-threatening or something that would alter permanently their life. So in an example here of a broken leg, I break my leg, I apply for Medicaid, I get approved for Medicare or Medicaid emergency services only. I go to the emergency room, they set my leg, put a cast on it, and that's it. That is the life-threatening situation. Any expense after that point, taking off the cast, it's out of your pocket because there's no longer an emergency in taking off the cast. Okay? If I have, let's use the example of I have appendicitis, I have the surgery, I'm discharged from the hospital, there's a follow-up visit with the doctor, the surgeon, it's not covered, because there's no longer a life-threatening or life-altering situation. So at that point, I don't think you're gonna see this very often, like you said, and we saw very few of them during my time as a caseworker. But it is that interim period of 5 years, okay? Next question.
But if the son goes with this lady, signs all the paper, the son keeps getting bills and bills and bills.
Well, that's his problem.
Yeah.
That's his problem. It will, I mean, the fact that you sign it is his responsibility.
You know, this person, the son doesn't sign, only this person signs, they still keep sending the bills, so what happens? How will they pay?
They better kiss and make up with the hospital or something and try and come up with a plan. And also there are usually some indigent funds that are available through the hospital, but it's at the hospital's discretion as to how much they can use and will use. You can ask for it, you can ask for discounts. I know I've talked to people who have said, I had a $1,000 bill, but they said if I paid $600 today, I'm done. Okay? It's worth $400. Okay, but at the point where somebody's assumed financial responsibility, whether they had to or not, sorry. Sorry. Medicare, step 4 on that. Let me get to that paperwork. I don't know how I lose this stuff, but on the 14th, what did I do? Okay, I gotta get another one. Step 4. And this will answer a little bit of your question that we kind of talked about before. Step 4 is kind of hidden in here again. If you go down to, is anyone enrolled in health coverage now from the following? And then you got Medicaid, CHIP, My Child, Medicare. And then right below it, it says, do you want to help pay Medicare premium? Okay, again, gotta have that, okay? And believe me, we're talking about staff here who are not only overworked, but maybe undertrained because of the fact that I've actually had DHS staff tell me there is no such thing as slimming. Oh, really? Okay, let me give you the policy on that. So, yeah, we've got to make sure that that's there. It's a good CYA, because then it verifies that, yes, you asked for this, and that you wanted eligibility to be determined for that.
To show it on the screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
We don't have to do that.
The DCH 1426. It's on actually page 7 of 14 and step 4. Make sure when you're checking that off, put in your Medicare number. It doesn't specifically say put in your Medicare number, but that's what they want. That blank is there for you to put your Medicare number on, okay? And then when you're doing the 1426, you remember we talked a little bit about the supplemental form. There is a supplemental form. You're going to always have to have these two. And the reason for that is this application doesn't ask for asset information. The 1426 doesn't have a place for it. Okay? Because they're assuming this is for all MAGI categories. But they can't restrict it to only MAGI categories. So that's why they said, okay, if you want the Medicaid for a disabled person or a senior, you also have to fill out this.
But if you do this one, you don't need the supplement?
Correct.
Okay.
You should not need it, no. Yeah.
And can we hand both of those in together?
Yes, you can.
And they will not send them another, what I'm finding.
I'm not gonna say that they're not gonna send you another. Because a lot of times, let me say that a lot of times, when they register the application, keep in mind this isn't a caseworker who registers an application. They're gonna pull up your name and address and date of birth, and they're gonna put the basic minimum information on it, and then it goes, yep, right to the caseworker's file. Now, this is not necessarily picked up in that registration of the application, okay? So it may be, because this will be issued even before the worker looks at it. because of only the information that was registered.
So, 'cause I have turned in like the documentation with the application, and it's like they never have received it.
And that's when you call them back and you say, you already have this information. It was uploaded to you at this date, on this date, at this time. You have the application, you have the supplemental questionnaire, and all of the verifications all at once. And you should be able to just contact them with that.
Is that the number you gave us where you can talk to a live person? Is that the number you can call?
No, I'd be calling whoever it was that was assigned to your application. The caseworker itself.
Then you always
Now,
get a voicemail.
well, no, okay, you got a voicemail, but there's a worker that's supposed to be on the other side of it. I can't guarantee how they answer the phone. I can't guarantee, how they're gonna work with it afterwards. What I can tell you is what the policy is supposed to be and how they're supposed to be looking at it. Now, the one thing I can tell you about that is make sure, and as a caseworker, this is what they always used to tell me: document. Okay, so if they ship to a perfect place to be making these kinds of documentation that you faxed in this application. You could included with that the documents for the bank account, the title to the vehicle, or what other verifications you submitted with it, along with the supplemental questionnaire on this at this time at this date. Okay, and now when I went back to DHS and said they sent this information out, look for it, find it. Okay, and they say we need to know when it was that they mailed it. Do you have a copy of the cover sheet? Okay, that's hard to prove if somebody doesn't keep a cover sheet. So if you want to do a CYA here, then keep a copy of the cover sheet with the information that you, and if you have a transmittal receipt, again, keep that, because that will verify the number you sent it to, the number of pages that were sent to them, and all that kind of stuff. And then I can tell them, go back and find it. But I can't when they say, well, it was sometime on the, between the 24th and the 29th. There's just too much stuff that comes in during that period of time. Yeah.
So does this supplemental health care questionnaire, Form 1004, do we still need to attach it to the new application?
No.
So the new health care application, that 4-page, will replace this?
Right. If I'm looking at this, if I take the 1426 and add on the supplemental questionnaire, then I have the same thing as the 1171.
The 1171 with the 1004?
No. The 1171 all by itself, because it already collects asset information.
Okay.
Okay? So the 1171, as it stands alone, the application for all programs, okay, is the same thing as the DPH 1426, the application for health care, okay, plus the supplemental questionnaire. They're even now.
Okay.
If I take the supplemental questionnaire away, I have an application here and I've got this over here. It just doesn't quite come up to the same standard as the 1171. Okay?
With the coordinators meeting, you made a comment about how the worker has so many hours to call you back for so many days, and if they don't, to call their supervisor.
Oh.
Yeah. This is, okay. Not a perfect world here, Mom. All right, what it is with the Department of Health and Human Services, and this is what I've been instructed to advise, is that if the beneficiary or you on behalf of the beneficiary, and let me say that unless you have a good rapport with that county office, you're going to want to have a signed release of information, because they don't have to tell you anything. This is HIPAA, okay? This is personal health information. Just the fact that they have Medicaid, they can't tell you, they can't acknowledge it at all, okay? So try and get that signed release of information if you're going to be dealing with DHS. If you never need it, wonderful. But if you do, it's always good to have it on.
Is there an official one online that we can have signed that's accepted by them?
Yeah, I use it all the time. There's one on ShipTools that you could, when you go in and do your...
On our ShipTools?
On your ShipTools.
That DHS will accept?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in fact, it specifically says who you can release information to. Like, 1-800-MEDICARE, Social Security Administration, Department of Health and Human Services, and then it even goes so far to say Department of Health and Human Services, by fax, phone, email, that kind of thing. So the client can be specific as to how you want information transmitted back and forth between Department of Health and Human Services. In fact, I almost always have to have one if I'm going to work on somebody's Medicare savings program or retro eligibility or things like that. So, yes.
Utilizing the new application, the assistance application with healthcare, if you're writing in, for example, their assets or money in accounts, you do not need to submit a copy of their bank statements and all of that you did under the old system?
No, you still have to verify assets.
So should we be submitting that with?
Yeah. If you're, just as you were submitting verification of assets with that 1426 and the supplemental questionnaire, okay, you're going to need to submit, whether it's immediately with the application, the 1171, or at the point where you've received that verification checklist and they've given a due date for those verifications to be received. But we almost always know that if they got a bank account, you're going to have to provide a bank statement. Needs to be within 30 days of the date of application.
So you were gonna talk about how much time they had to call the beneficiary back?
Yep. What the DHS prescribed is that if you call your worker and say, Mrs. Jones, I need to talk to you about my Medicare savings program. Would you please give me a call back? And you're supposed to wait 24 to 48 hours. If you get no response from your worker, you are advised to go ahead and call back. You'll have to go to the general information number. You aren't going to be able to call the number that's on that letter that they got from the worker, okay? You're going to call it, and that's where you go back to that tab in the home page of DHS's website and look for the county, and then you get to their actual information number. You call them and say, I left a message for Mrs. Jones. I need to talk to her. I haven't gotten a call back. Would you please put me through to her manager? Okay? At that point, we hang up. We leave a message for the worker if they're not there. Or if we do catch them at their desk, fine, we can talk to them about the situation. And then let's say you leave the message, 24 to 48 hours, give them a day or two to make that connection back to you. If they don't, then your next step is to call the director.
And this is Monday through Friday only?
Yeah, Monday through Friday. Sometimes on Sundays. Well, you can leave them a message, but you cannot talk to them. Yes, next question.
In terms of the documentation checklist, it has a lot of things that probably aren't really relevant, like your utility bills and that. Do you suggest we send all that in too?
No. And the only time, and of course, this says Medicaid documentation checklist. None of the shelter expenses would be used or considered at any point for Medicaid eligibility. The only time shelter expenses would be necessary is if there's a food assistance application, because those expenses are used to offset the income to determine the amount of food stamp benefits. But everything with the assets, identification, technically you do not have to prove identification for Medicaid only. So, I mean, basically, unless it's questionable as a caseworker, I don't have to know that you have a driver's license or anything like that. But it's not required for Medicaid.
Social Security card?
The Social Security card really is not identification.
So
Identification
this says and Social Security card. And I always tell people.
Well, yeah, Social Security card, they don't need the Social Security card, they need the Social Security number, which can be supplied on the application. You must have a Social Security number in order to apply for Medicaid. The only exception to that would be newborns, and that's just because they don't have one yet. So at that point, there isn't a requirement for it. Okay, next slide.
Before you leave that checklist, though, could you just tell us what other things we should automatically send in with that application besides the asset information?
If it were me, most of the time we're looking at checking and savings accounts, life insurance, burial funds, vehicles, Medicare card, any other health insurance, whether it be through an employer or something purchased like a Medigap policy, any kind of income, whether it be pensions or Social Security. And technically, even Social Security you don't need to give because of the fact that DHS has real-time access to your Social Security benefit information. So they're not supposed to even ask you for it, unless it's questionable. And so it would be a situation, let's say you turned in a bank statement and it says FSA deposit, $1,500, okay? And you put on your application that you get $1,000 a month in Social Security. That's conflicting information. And in that situation, they would ask for you to provide proof of what you actually get. Because you've got the bank account that says $1,500, you've got the application that says $1,000. It's conflicting, and therefore there has to be some documentation as to what truly your benefit is, okay?
You don't have to add back your Part B premium to the
We're
account.
always looking at gross income. DHS always uses gross income. So whether it's a pension, whether it's employment income, whether it's your Social Security with your Part D and your Part B premiums withheld from it, you must use the gross income.
But life insurance, there's two types of life insurance. Both are you count as asset or just cashable life insurance only.
All right.
Yeah.
The question here is there's different kinds of life insurance, and actually there's actually a couple of different hybrids that are out there. There are actually some term life insurance policies now that have some cash surrender value, and it doesn't. The situation is if you have a life insurance policy, it doesn't matter what kind of life insurance policy you have. You need to be able to provide proof of it so that the worker can confirm that it is a term life policy and there is no cash surrender value. Just the same as you would have to confirm that you have a traditional life insurance policy that has cash surrender value, but what is the current cash surrender value? You know how they build in those little tables into your life insurance policy that says, you know, year 5, it's worth this much? That's an estimate, total estimate. It has absolutely no validity when verifying assets because it could be more, it could be less. Okay, so they have to have something from the insurance company that's going to verify the current cash surrender value, not based upon the table, but what is exactly going to add it to that policy. Okay, the 3243. My friend, personal friend, and of course, and I think even your copy at the top shows blank space here. I don't know how that ended up because whenever I had to create a form working for DHS or revise a form, it had to go somewhere to approve that all the formatting was right and everything. Now this is what they put out there on the website. It's got no place for you to actually identify the individual. Because usually there's a box up in the top that says this is the beneficiary name, case number, ID. There's nothing like that on here. And if you open it up on the actual DHS website, it looks like you've got a blank piece of paper. And unless you know you've got to scroll down to get to the top of the page, which is about the middle, you're going to go, well, this form isn't working, but it's there. It's poorly formatted. Just know that that 3243 is in the on the website and that you could go and get it. I say it's important mostly because of the fact that for our SLIMBs and our OMBs, this is huge. We're talking about generally about 10% of their income coming back to them if we can do it for the 3 months prior. So I would make it a habit. If you're filling out an 1171 and asking for Medicaid, and Medicare Savings Program or Medicare Savings Program only, because you know that they're going to qualify for SLIMB and OMB, you must put a retro application with it. You've just given back to that beneficiary $400. Now, if you think that they're going to be happy because they get the premiums from the future pay, they're going to be ecstatic when you tell them that they're going to get another $400. So keep that in mind. That is, I would make that the highest priority whenever I'm dealing with Medicare Savings Program. Make sure you've got that, okay?
Either form, the 1171 or the new form.
Either one.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. It is a supplemental form.
Linda, will that extra money affect their eligibility?
No. The question here was if they get that refund, $402, will that affect their, finisher eligibility? No, it isn't, because in policy, it's considered a reimbursement. And reimbursements are not assets or income, okay?
So how often have we pull out this one?
When you apply for them the first time. Yeah, first time. So, you know, if you're, because if they're on it and they're just doing a redetermination, we don't need to ask for it, they've already gotten that taken care of. So at initial eligibility, when we're looking to try and give them the benefit, that's when we want to do that, retroactive Medicaid application. Okay? So you'll get flowers, you'll get candy, you'll get cookies, you know, you just, because, a beneficiary, and this is probably about a year ago now, it took me a while to get DHS to update bridges, and then the buy-in unit, Medicare buy-in unit, to actually process the buy-in. Well, when we finally did it, and for this particular woman, it was, I want to say $3,200. And I called her and I said, good news, it's finally fixed. And she started to cry, and she said, you know what? I'm now going to be able to get my refrigerator. Now, this is a basic necessity of life, and yet at the same time, she couldn't afford to get it fixed, and she couldn't afford to get a new one because of the fact that her Part B premiums were being taken out of her check, and she didn't have enough money to live on otherwise. So this $3,000 meant that she was going, she said also a roof repair. She needed a roof repair, and she needed the refrigerator. So this is, again, huge. Talk to the person once that gets retroactive benefits, and it's like you tie a stake around your neck with your dog, you know? So, yeah.
So the actual completion of this is a little bit confusing, especially if you have to divide things into 3 different months.
Yep.
This gentleman was saying, as well. Are you going to address that at
Yep.
all? Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Okay, the only stipulation here, and of course, my example here real quick, June application, request for March, April, and May. If I'm doing an application here, we're looking at, for Slimby and only, I cannot request previous, month in a previous year with OMB. So let's say I'm doing a March application, I can ask for January and February, but I can't ask for December for OMB. Okay? And it has to do with budget. I don't know. And it's just like for QMB beneficiaries. How many of you know when a QMB beneficiary's eligibility actually starts? What is it? The month after you're approved. We got those people at 100% of federal poverty level, and the QMB beneficiaries don't get their Part B premiums paid for until the month following the month that they process the case. So they get the application on June 15th. You don't have to process until August 1st because it's for 45 days. Okay? So at that point, they process for August 1st. And when does their QMB start? September. But we've got a June application. Okay? So the quicker you can get the things into the local office so that they can process, that better. If they, and they should process within the 45 days. So again, this is a situation where the application date can still be critical to what that individual is going to get. So if I apply 1 day sooner, I might be able to get them so that they have to process by the last day of July, so that benefits begin August 1st. Yes, you have questions.
So for Slimby and Almy, when do the benefits begin, and what month can you get retroactive?
For Slimby and Almy, your benefit starts the month of application and any one of the 3 retro months that you request. So that's where that retro.
So if I apply in June and I'm approved August, my effective date is June?
Correct. And any 3 months that you're eligible for. Now, the only exception to that is if I haven't become Medicare eligible yet. So let's say for a beneficiary who became eligible for Medicare in the month of June, we do a June application, they're approved. Their eligibility starts June 1st, okay? But we aren't going to be eligible for any of the retro months because there wasn't any Medicare eligibility in those retro months. But somebody who is on Medicare or on Medicare for March 1st, we can certainly go back and ask for those 3 months.
So now, Quimby's not eligible for retro
Correct.
Medicare premium, but they can apply for
not eligible for retroactive coverage. But you can still use the retroactive Medicaid application to get help with full Medicaid expenses, okay? So in the situation, somebody comes in, let's say we're working on an application for them today, okay? But they have a medical expense other than their Part B premium because they went to the hospital, they went to their doctor, they had some lab tests, they got all the co-pays of Medicare for March, April, May. We can do retro Medicaid and have them determine eligibility for the Medicaid, which will also pay the co-pays and deductibles of the Medicare for those past months. We can't give them their premium back, but we can help them with other medical expenses. Okay? Yes.
How did you get 5,000 back? If you must have gone way beyond that 3 months provision.
Oh, because it was an administrative error. In the example of the 5,000 and even in the $3,000 example, it is a matter of Department of Health and Human Services had an administrative error. We called them on it, and they had to go back and correct it. An administrative error is an error regardless of how old it is. They have to correct the benefit. They don't like to, but they will do it. Okay? So administrative error is always correctable. Once I get, here's an example, even for Medicaid. Let's just say it's an ad care. Okay? We apply in June, and we didn't request retro at that time. And we get to the point where we're in September, and the client comes in and says, I got a bill. It's for April. What am I going to do? I don't have Medicaid. As long as there hasn't been a redetermination done on that initial application filed in June, the beneficiary still has the right to be able to request retroactive coverage back the 3 months prior, even though the eligibility has long been determined. Once we get to the point where there's been a redetermination done on that application, that stops. So, a hospital doesn't send out a bill for you if they keep pushing it out to Medicaid, and Medicaid's not doing anything with it, and so they keep expecting Medicaid to fix it. There isn't anything to fix because now we've gotten past the redetermination. But if we'd known about that hospital bill because they couldn't get it to process through Medicaid in those, even within the first, let's say, 10 months after a determination, because you got to consider the 45-day standard promise, we can still go back and ask for that April. Okay, so that's another way you make people so happy.
Take a break or not yet?
How many people want a break? Oh, well, how about, let's see, right now, I've got, what, does that say 6:35? My clock says 6:35, I'm out of here. I have 2:40 right now. How about 10 minutes? Can we do 10 minutes? Everybody have a chance to stretch their legs, and we'll meet back here at 2:50 and get back to it, because I don't want you to miss anything that we've got to offer for information. So 10 minutes.
Okay.
So
Gross income is after they take out the health premium. Is that what you said? Before they take out. So we should add it back in. Got me all confused.
Always, they look at the total.
So,
Technically, you don't have to reply. You should
add it back in.
like how the issue plan to the Medicare or Medicare. You don't have to reply.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then they'll pay
Thank you.
I got one.
You got the good one, all right.
What do I?
Anybody?
I got the good one.
Okay, everyone.
Oh, you don't work.
Quiet down.
Okay.
We can get started. We're back on the recording.
The top page.
All right. Out in the world out here, if you can't hear us, you don't have the audio.
Find another one.
Please, chat and let us know. And also, before we finish, I want to remind everybody that we have the survey cards over here. please take a stack of them, please send them out to people. And if you need instructions again on how to send them in, one by, email, we can send you those instructions. Just drop us a note and let us know. It's really important that we get the feedback back. It's almost all excellent, and we want that because we know that you do good work. We want you to get credit for it, and we can really use this for advocacy purposes as they try to take our funding and everything away.
Yeah.
We have documentation that says, look at the good job that we're doing, and we know it's a good job. And the minor question, the minor thing that wasn't real good was somebody thought that we waited too long to call them back. That's the only negative feedback that we've gotten so far, and it was only on one. So, so please take cards if you need more of them. I've got more in my office. They're postage paid. All they have to do is fill them out, and that way we know you're doing a great job. Okay? And we're back.
Okay, real quick here, just in case you don't know, Michigan gets about $1.5 million to serve the 2 million or potentially 2 million Medicare beneficiaries in the state of Michigan. Now, as far as bang for your buck, it doesn't get better than that. Not all 2 million are going to contact us, but at the same time, there's a sufficient number of inquiries and contacts that we make that certainly account for 1.5 million. I think at one time, based upon some calculations, they figured that we're getting, it's costing us only about 50 cents per person to contact. So, like I said, it doesn't get better than that. At this point, I guess if you would want to set it up, we're going to try the interaction part with the other groups. I'll try and remember that we have a satellite site here to go through. But if you're looking at your PowerPoint, page 11, if you would get to that page 11 of the PowerPoint, we're going to start there and we're going to test your knowledge. We're going to be talking about people who are coming in and applying for assistance. And we're not going to have the screen showing it, but we're going to be looking at the other people here and the other site.
Where you want to be now?
No, I want to see the other people.
Oh, see everybody. Okay.
Yeah, I want to see them so I can see if anybody's there.
Oh, see the people like.
Hi.
No, that's us.
I know, but they gotta see me.
Okay.
All right. Here at this point, what to do? Okay, we're gonna go through a few examples here, and I want to get your responses before. And don't turn the page yet. I'll slap your hand. Okay. So I'm a mom and a grandma. I can do that. It says, Betty is widowed and drawing her Social Security from Barney's benefits. She will turn 65 in August and would like help with her Medicare costs. Betty gets $1,150 gross each month. She doesn't have a car and would like help with the application. What is the easiest way for Betty to apply for health care? And based only on the information above, what will Betty qualify for? Don't read into this. Don't, go, oh, well, she would get this, or we could do that. Okay, just what information you have, okay? So what are we going to, first of all, do for Betty?
Tell her to call the 800 number.
Okay,
That's what I would
anything
do.
else? What do we think she's going to be eligible for?
Slimby.
What?
Slimby.
Okay. We're talking Medicaid here.
Slimby.
She's going to be Slimby. Anything else?
1150.
All right. Who said that?
Somebody out in the world saying that? Could you repeat? Whoever was out there? Linda, I think, was that you?
1150.
Okay, I think I heard LIS. I should be saying LIS. Yeah, we are listening to you anyway. LIS, we know that, but when we're talking about, because we've been working on the Medicaid applications here, so So we're just talking about, what are we talking about with DHS? What's gonna happen? So, I didn't see a name tag.
Susan.
Susan here without a name tag. She said, advise Betty to call the number, okay?
To me, that's the easiest.
Right, and that's exactly what we're looking at. For Betty, she doesn't have a car. We can't tell her, well, drive to the local MAP office and we'll help you. She can do it right over the phone. The easiest thing for her to do, because she called you, she can call that number, okay? And Betty will qualify for Medicaid deductible. Will this make a big difference to Betty?
Sure.
It could. It could. If she has a hospitalization, it could take care of a chunk of that, but she's also gonna get her SlimB. And again, what is one of the things that we wanna think about for any kind of SlimB or OMB beneficiary? Retro, perfect. I saw a hand.
Yeah, I just had a question, about the $20 disregard
Yes,
for income. So would you take that income minus the $20?
correct. Gross income minus the $20 unearned income disregard,
Yeah.
okay? $20 unearned income disregard. So $1,130 counts of her $1,150. Doesn't get better than that, okay? We can't reduce it anymore. She's at $1,130. So she's gonna be a Medicaid deductible and
Where do you get Medicaid deductible?
Medicaid deductible and spend down are the same thing. And I just want to tell you right now, by using the spend down term, it just ages you. Get in the 20th century. Now Medicaid deductible. That's what the client says. I know. It's actually been officially changed, Medicaid deductible, in the policy. And we can do a little more Q&A on that during the.
When she calls, does she have to actually tell them what she wants, or they'll take her information and tell her?
She may say that.
But what if she doesn't know? She can tell them.
It's supposed to be that the system is set up based upon her, a particular eligibility situation or her living situation, that it will determine the correct eligibility for her. Like, for instance, they'll say, do you have other insurance? And she says, yes, I have Medicare. It's going to start August 1st. And she goes, perfect. Then at that point, they should be determining eligibility for the Medicare Savings Program, because they're supposed to determine eligibility for all potential programs.
And they'll tell her you also qualify for the Medicaid deductible.
Yeah. And in
Okay.
fact, what I see sometimes is they don't do the Medicare Savings Program, but they do the Medicaid deductible. And then, what they really, thought they were going to get was the $134, in their checks back. And what they end up with is, I got to pay $1,000 before anybody's going to help me with my medical. So it's a little confusing for them. I'll be the first one to tell you that the notices from DHS are atrocious.
Yeah.
Okay? Even knowing what I know about policy and what the letters should be saying or are supposed to be saying, I still have to read it a couple of times. So it's got to be confusing for the beneficiary. Okay?
Excuse me. Other than checking that little box that's sort of buried on page 94 or something, is it like some way we can flag that they're really applying for MSP that somebody might see it?
In the notes section.
Are you talking about a paper?
On the application, yeah.
On the paper application.
Well, yeah.
Or in My Bridges. There's no page on My Bridges. And if I've ever helped somebody with Medicare Savings Program or Medicaid and MSP, I will always go to the end and say, we are also requesting retroactive Medicare Savings Program under ALMB or SLMB for the month of boom, boom, boom. Okay? Do it on the paper application. There's notes pages on both of those applications. Don't be afraid to use that. Somebody will eventually look at it. But not only that, in recovering benefits, when I go back and say, no, I got a copy of the application, it says they checked the box, they said they wanted retro, they put it in the note, you need to fix it, okay? I can go ahead and get that fixed.
You did not say that this person, she's not eligible for anything retro, because she's not eligible until August, correct?
Correct.
Right, okay, just want to make sure I heard correctly.
Yep. Okay, next one.
Do you want to, or do you want to just
the people, they're just gonna go ahead and go to the next slide on what to do, and we're on page 13 now. Mickey and Minnie are married, but they have not lived together in 20 years. Minnie gets Social Security from Mickey, but is having a hard time making her money stretch. She only gets $835 a month in Social Security and a pension of $147 a month. She has $5,000 in her checking account. Minnie is coming into town and would like someone to help her apply that day. What is the fastest way to apply, and what should she qualify for? Now, okay, Minnie is coming into town, okay? What's the fastest way, if she's coming into town, we're going to sit down with you? What would be the fastest way for her to apply? What? Bridges. Same day, boom, it's there, okay? Now, she doesn't want to use Bridges, so she doesn't want to use the computer. You know, people are a little weary sometimes with computers, you know, information, hacking and all that kind of stuff. Do a paper application. But the fastest way, buy Bridges, okay? All right, and what do you think she should qualify for? Yeah, she has $5,000 in assets, so we know that probably will disqualify her from Medicaid, all Medicaid, okay? She can go for deductible. Okay, now what's the asset limit for a Medicaid deductible? Same as it is for Medicare, $2,000. So she can't get Medicaid deductible with excess assets. If she's got excess income, then she can. But she can't with excess assets.
Is she regarded as married though, or single in this situation?
She's still married, but they're estranged. They don't live together.
That's okay. But are you only counting her assets then?
Only her assets. They're not commingled with him. And the reason that they will do that is because of the fact that when you've got, now, Minnie moved out a month ago, that would be different. Okay. You know, Minnie moved out a month ago. It's not because her and Mickey don't get along anymore. It's just because Minnie doesn't only have, you know, a few $100 in income, and she knows she can get if she moves in with the daughter for a couple of months, maybe she can get the Medicare Savings Program. But we're looking at a 20-year estrangement, okay? It is a situation whereas they can prove that they have nothing in common for income or assets, okay? They can prove that for 20 years, and the reason here is some people have a reason of faith that they may not want to divorce. It's not within their faith community to divorce. They can't live with each other, but they are not going to divorce each other, okay? So in this situation, we're not going to make it punitive, you know, to say, well, we don't care. Mickey's, you know, still married to you. We don't care if he's lived in another house. They look at, they've lived differently. They don't have, if they had a bank account in common, absolutely would make a difference. But if Mickey has his account, Minnie has her account, we're talking about two.
But she can get his Social Security. That's okay. I mean, you don't live with the guy, but you want his money.
Well, Social Security determines that. Social Security's going to give her that whether she's living with Mickey or not.
If she could have a sugar daddy, it wouldn't matter
So
either.
that's right. She could have a sugar daddy, but, you know.
Now, couldn't she
At our
call,
age,
could she call the 800 number too? Is calling the 800 number better or worse than Bridges? Is Bridges the same thing? I'm a little.
Basically, it's an electronic format. I mean, you're doing your phone, it's electronic, you're calling a person and they're inputting the information. There's no difference than if you sit down and a person is inputting the information onto the computer system.
So if you met with her on that particular day and helped her on the phone, it would be the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Now, the question is, what does she qualify for?
QMB.
QMB. Give that man a cookie.
Except if she went for Slimmy, then she'd get a retro.
But she can't decide that. She cannot choose to have Slim B in order to get retroactive money. She can only stay within the income category that she's in. So if she, in this situation, she's 100% of federal poverty level or less, she can't say, well, you know what, I don't want QMB, I want Slim B because I know I'm going to get $400 more. Can't do it. You can't make that choice to give up one category for the other.
So when you
what happens if in a year she loses, like something happens and she spends up all the $5,000?
Then she
She goes
to change her.
and she called a worker. The question here is real quick, and I'll get back to you, is what if she spends down her $5,000? Perfect example of that would be she goes into a funeral home and she plans a funeral. Maybe she makes a repair to her car.
Yeah.
I mean, $5,000 for heaven's sakes isn't a whole lot of money, but it's enough so that it disqualifies her for the one program that she needs the most. Rather than having it disqualify her and have all this out-of-pocket expense for medical, she goes ahead and she uses that to prepay for a funeral. Whether it's just the headstone and a plot, that's all she has to worry about, as long as she gets her assets down below the $2,000, okay? And then at that point, we can go ahead and she can notify the worker and say, you know what, here's proof of my asset. I no longer have $5,000. This is what I've done. I've converted it from a countable asset in my checking account to an excluded asset as a burial space item, okay? And at that point, they can redetermine eligibility, add care to it, and she can move forward. Your question, Rick?
So do you put her down as married with a note saying that they're estranged?
Yes. And that's exactly what I would do. In that situation, put married, don't lie, but put in there that they're married, and then put in your note section that Mickey and Minnie haven't lived together for 20 years. They have no income and asset in common. One lives at, Mickey lives at, Disney Lane, and that, Mickey lives, Minnie lives somewhere. It doesn't matter. Just that's your explanation. That's how you account for the discrepancy between being married and having only one person on the application. That's your note page. Okay?
Now, when you fill out the application, should you asterisk that there's a note, or just assume they're going to look at the note?
I would say that's a good idea. Susan, without a name tag here, she has actually mentioned that it would be a really good idea to maybe note on that page where you're, if you're doing a paper application, please see notes page, so that it tells the worker, go back there, and there will be my explanation of what's going on. Okay?
I think the best thing in general is not to assume anything.
Right.
So if you can make it obvious, then do so.
Yep, exactly. Make it obvious, yes.
If a couple's married, you have an estranged husband, he is helping to pay her healthcare premiums for supplemental, but she is very low income and they're still pulling out the Medicare Part D premium. Is she eligible?
Okay, now the question here is you're saying the husband pays for supplemental insurance for her.
That's correct.
Is he giving the money to her to pay it, or is he paying?
He is just purchasing it and putting her name on the policy.
Okay. In a situation whereas, let's say it's an ex-husband here, and the ex-husband is, whether ordered or not, is said, I'm going to go ahead and make sure you don't go without insurance. I'm paying for a Medigap fee for you, and so I'll take care of that premium, and he pays it directly out of his account. As long as the money doesn't come out of the ex-husband's hands, gets put into Minnie's account, okay, and then it becomes an income stream. Any money given from the ex-spouse to the individual becomes an income stream because he's giving her $300 every month. Doesn't matter what it's intended for. It now becomes an income stream, and then it changes the eligibility. So I always tell any children, it's a situation of, I want to help mom and dad, then put your name on the light bill, pay the light bill for them each month, but don't give them the money for it, because then it becomes an income stream. Once it goes through that person's hands, it becomes income. Yes?
So a family could do that for the rent, for the utility bill,
Yeah.
the water bill?
Yeah.
Doesn't that start to feel like fraud?
Well, okay, except for the fact that if they were getting food stamps and telling the caseworker, we pay the heat and electric and rent.
I'm just talking about with respect to the Medicare, Medicaid.
To me, it doesn't. Let's say Minnie, think about it, less than $1,000. How many of us could actually really live on $1,000? You know, that's maybe a couple of times at the grocery store, but it doesn't really offer a lot of, luxury. Now, if I'm looking at the fact that, she's claiming that, in a situation, if she, and I'm only looking at food stamps because Medicaid doesn't ever use the, expenses paid by another unless it goes through that individual's hand. So again, it's a situation, Medicare doesn't care what your rent is. They don't care if you're paying $300 a month in electricity, okay? They don't take that into consideration to determine eligibility. They look at your gross income, give you the standard $20 disregard, and compare it to the income limit thing. That's done. So at that point, it really has, it's not like it'll change the Medicaid eligibility. Now, if the individual were to say, you know what, I pay $400 a month in rent, and, you know, and they make the claim that that's their expense and that they pay it, and really the son is, yeah, I think that's safe, and it smells like fraud. So when it comes to Medicaid, those expenses do not change somebody's eligibility.
Could I give mom a credit card where the bill comes to?
Sure. Yeah. Want to give mom a credit card? Take your chances on that one. But you know, it's still a situation, again, a credit card isn't an asset, it's not an income. So if mom goes to the grocery store or IKEA or wherever, and, you know, the casino. I like it when they go to the casino. Okay. So it's a situation, it doesn't matter how mom spends his money, okay, because it's not her money, his money that's used to determine eligibility. It's just hers. Yes, one last.
On the look back on the assets, so, did DHS look at what that was spent for to determine whether or not that asset should still be counted or not? So, for example, I had a client who was gonna be Medicaid eligible. She needed some home repairs. They were safety related. It was a driveway. Once she spent that asset, then she became Medicaid eligible. Do they actually pick and choose what kind of things?
They're not supposed to, because technically the whole exchange of assets is, did you get fair market value? I'm not going to go buy a 1984 Buick Skylark and pay $10,000 for it, because it's not worth $10,000, okay? But if I have a new driveway put in, or I have a new water heater put in, or whatever it is that needs to be done, and I get a fair exchange, I pay for a water heater, and it's the fair market value for the water heater and the labor, then that's a perfectly legitimate transfer of an asset from a countable asset to an excluded asset, okay? So that's perfectly legitimate. When we're talking about look back, how many of you want to even get into the world of long-term care or waiver? Chicken. What I would say to you is that would be the only time we really need to know anything about a look-back period. And that is because the federal government says, if you disposed of assets over the last 60 months that was to just give away or a transfer without receiving fair market value, you know, that money. So, you know, we have some of them that, you know, IRS says you can give a set amount of money to your kids every year, and that's okay for IRS. Doesn't mean it's okay for Medicaid. Two sets of rules here. And if you thought that, you know, the federal government talked to the IRS about the estimates and that kind of stuff, you got another thing coming. But it's a situation where what rules apply to IRS and what rules apply to Department of Health and Human Services, two different things. You can give that money away, but it's going to cause you problems if you need nursing home care in the future. But we're not going to go there.
And actually, we don't do long-term care, but I'm interested in that because I've gone to presentations by attorneys, elder care attorneys, and they're telling me, I have a client with $1 million and I can make them Medicaid eligible. And I'm like, how do you do that? And talk about unethical. It makes me question that, but, I mean, is there, do you have any comment on that at all?
Training and landing can be. It can be. It can be.
Put an irrevocable trust in it.
There are so, you know, if you've got money, you can usually protect it. Because you can hire an attorney, and there are so many, trusts and transfers and things like that are, and they calculate that very closely. I will tell you, however, that the Bureau of Legal Affairs at the Department of Health and Human Services has recently really crunched down on that. One of the things that I used to see, and I don't remember now exactly the amount, but the adult children, there were 3 children with spouses, they went and bought $30,000 caskets for them and their spouse, and then they went to Jared's and they bought, 2-carat diamond rings. This is all unbelievable to me. But they'd rather have their mother in a Medicaid bed than to lose their inheritance.
Right.
Right.
Okay? So they went ahead and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on those things. Now, what DHS is saying now is that you didn't buy that for her.
Right.
Okay? Because it's one of the daughter-in-laws flashing the diamonds now.
Maybe the month of the
Yeah. The nursing home, I talked to a nursing home one time, and they said, we wouldn't even let them keep something like that in the nursing home. Too many, the chances of something being stolen or lost. So they just don't do that as a general rule. I had one individual who had bought a refrigerator, a bedroom outfit, a computer, and a violin. Because sometimes they took her to their house, okay, to stay overnight for so the bedroom outfit was for her room, the violin was for her. However, when I called the nursing home again, the woman had severe dementia. She wouldn't have known what a violin was, okay? She's not going to sit down to the computer and play, solitaire. These are not things for that individual. So they are watching that closer, okay? But at the same time, if you have the right attorney, there is the potential for someone to divest or spend down assets to become qualified for Medicaid. And I've seen it over and over again. So it is not something I'm happy about, and there's nothing big. The elder law section is very, very strong in the state of Michigan. And don't get me started. Okay. I'm just saying.
have another thing on elder law.
Huh?
We'll have another thing, session with you on elder law and what we can do.
Oh, you want another session on that? That's the one that David Schultz does.
Yeah, in Lansing.
That's the Medicaid specialist training, basically. Because
They'll tell
that's
you
what
there's not that many things you can actually do.
What's that?
They'll tell you there isn't that much you can do.
Yeah, that's what he'll tell you.
Right.
And then on the other side, okay. Page 15, what to do? Robin Hood, age 77, and Marion, age 72, are married, and they both are drawing Social Security retirement. Neither are in good health and hoping to get help with their health care expenses. Robin gets $11.55 a month, and Marion gets $5.77 a month. What should the MAP counselor do to help them? Any suggestions? What's the first thing you're going to think about doing? Put their income together.
Yeah, 1732.
Say what? Say, go ahead. What are you
Depending on their assets,
we're going to assume that they qualify. We're not reading into it. Just look at their income now.
All B?
All B.
and
What are we
LIS.
going to do for them? We're going to help them apply.
Call 800.
Should have never given you that number, Susan. That's amazing. Okay. Yeah. You need to help them fill out an application. Whether, and again, this comes down to their preference. What do they want to do? In the situation, if they've got a health problem, they probably can come into the office. Could they apply over the phone? Absolutely. But they'd be a Medicaid deductible and all be. But think about this. Married couple, $134 per person. $268 a month.
Right.
That's their heat. That's their groceries. And I literally had somebody in Ingham County this year with the cost of living adjustment, the 3%? No, 2%. 2% this year. 2% increase in the cost of living. Federal poverty level didn't quite keep pace with that, based upon the fact that DHS now uses partial dollars to determine eligibility. They lost their ALMB by less than $1.
Wow.
So for $1 in income, they lost $260.
Wow.
So harsh.
Would you automatically apply for LIS, or would you allow it to be?
Yeah, they will do LIS.
I would also do the LIS, but again, we've been talking about the Medicaid only here, but you're absolutely right. In a situation where we're dealing with this couple, if I'm sitting down with them because of the fact that we know that they could qualify for the LIS, I would never wait for DHS to deem them just because, okay, you lost 45 days already. Just by the fact that you turn in an application, you know they're not going to do it on day 15. They're going to do it on day 30 or 45. So don't wait. Always do a separate LIS application for anybody when you're working with them if they're going to be potentially qualified.
Okay. He's always told us.
What?
That's what he's always said.
Now she's talking out.
Now she's listening. She's listened just once, but okay. What to do? Page 17. George O.T. Jungle. Age 66, lives in a remote area, believe it or not, and has contacted MAP for information and assistance with his healthcare expenses. He just retired and enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan, but has co-pays for doctors and hospitalizations. He gets a small pension of $250 a month and Social Security of $750. He has a small checking account with $736 and a savings account with $1,500 for emergencies. He has an appointment with a counselor on Monday. What is George eligible for? What? Straight Medicaid? Okay, now,
Are we assuming he's retired
$1,500
without
His assets is too high.
okay, all right. You're on the right track. He's eligible for full Medicaid income-wise. We already, that's pretty clear. But Mo here, believe it or not, had a great comment, okay? What it is that $1,500 in the savings account comes designated as a burial fund. Then it becomes totally excluded. All he has to do, he doesn't have to go to the funeral home, he doesn't have to go to the bank, he just has to write out on a piece of paper that says, George O.T. Jungle designates the savings account at, Fifth Third Bank with this account number as my burial fund, okay? Now, the only thing is, you can't touch it now, okay? You can't touch it. That $1,500 and any interest that's added onto it here till infinity is all excluded. Interest is always excluded when it's been added to a burial fund.
Really?
But he can't take that and go, ooh, I need a car repair or an oil change. Can't take that $20 out for the oil change. I have to leave that account just as it is. Because if you take it out, then you're subject to, okay, it's no longer a burial fund because you're using it for something other than a burial fund, so therefore it's no longer excluded. We're going to end up closing the case.
Even if at some point he were to spend down all of his other $736 for other things?
He can. Yeah, I mean, if he wants to do that, as long as the combination of the two.
But then could he go into his $1,500?
No, he's not ever going to touch that $1,500, okay? He's had to designate that. That's kind of, I swear, I'm only going to use that, $1,500 for my burial fund.
And is that the max for a burial, $1,500?
$1,500 for a burial fund, which covers things like the staff at the funeral home, cremation. Those are services. If it's a service, then it's a fund item. When it's a space, like a casket, a vault, a headstone, then it's a different exclusion than it is for, because I could buy a $5,000 headstone, have it set, put my name on it, and it's excluded.
Wow. But it basically, that fund has to be designated that way at the bank?
No, it doesn't.
Oh.
Just as your signed statement you can be written in crayon, and as Judge, Marilyn Young will say, toilet paper and a crayon. You know, you can put it on there and say, this is my statement that says that this bank account is designated as my burial fund. But, you know, at this point, you have to be really careful once you designate it. So if he wants to have another savings account that would be separate from that burial fund, so let's say, put the casino won $400. Have him open up a second savings account. So then the checking and the savings account, $1,100, still under the $2,000 asset limit, okay? Yeah.
The checking account, when I get this information, the beginning of the month when they've gotten paid their Social Security is huge, but at the end of the month, after they paid all the bills and stuff. So do we wait till to get the,
No, you take the lowest amount.
You get the cookie.
Okay, but if you're,
What
if
does
you're
she
submitting
have
a
at the
proof
end
with
of the
it,
month?
if you're submitting a proof with it, the proof is at one point in the month is gonna show a lot more in that checking account.
Correct. And then this is what we're going by. You only have to prove, okay, and just for those of you out there, the question is, at the beginning of the month, the checking account statement looks a lot bigger than what it was, because that's when the check was deposited into the account. The situation here is, the Department of Health and Human Services rules are, if I have income in a month, I can't also count it as my asset, okay? So if I have a deposit of income made into my account, let's say of $1,000 on the 3rd of the month, I can't count that as part of my checking account balance, because that is income this month, okay? So at that point, I have to subtract off the amount of the deposit. So in this situation, let's say the balance is $3,000 in my account, okay? I subtract off that $1,000 from the lowest balance on the account statement, okay? Not just that day, but the lowest balance. That is my net countable asset in that account. The reason why is Medicaid, you only have to prove one day in a calendar month that you have assets at or below $2,000. Okay, one day. Other programs, you have to prove that every day you were at or below the asset limit. So for Medicaid, you only have to have one. Yes, Johnny.
Would we, just spend down $250 in emergency account? Buy something for.
Oh, you're talking about in the savings account? Okay, John's statement is, he's got this, $1,500 in his savings account. Couldn't he just go and spend $250? Yeah, absolutely he could. Okay, does he want to? No, because he's probably, and I've had people tell me, I don't touch that, that's for my burial. That's for my funeral, I don't touch that. You need a water heater, I don't touch it. You know, and it's that ownership.
Buried in his water.
Yeah, buried in water heater.
But I'm still not understanding how this gets put onto an application. So if somebody has $3,000 in their checking account, and we know that they're gonna spend $2,000 on bills or whatever.
Okay.
And so, how do we reflect that the balance, that the amount that they have available in any given month is typically only, $1,000?
Yeah, okay, we're going back to how do we account for what the balance is, okay? We're applying in June. Do we have June's bank statement yet? No. We got May, okay? We go back and May 1st through the 31st, it shows up here that I had all my deposits of my pension and Social Security, and I get down here to the bottom and I got, $59 left. It doesn't matter what's up here. It only matters what's here. We've got a long day. So you're going to put in there the balance is $59. Not exactly what let's say if I go into my bank account right now and go online and say, what's my balance? We're going to show a whole lot more in there because I've got a whole lot dedicated to payments that aren't withdrawing yet, okay? It doesn't really matter. I mean, in this situation, let's say on the last day of the month, there's still $2,500 in that bank account. But they had $2,000 deposited at the beginning of the month. Again, you take the income away from the balance because it can't be counted as an asset in the same month that the income is received. So I go back, I subtract out the Social Security benefit or pension or what other source of income there is in that month, okay? And then what's the balance is the amount that is actually my net countable asset. So it would be punitive if we said, somebody gets $2,000 in income a month, and then they turn around and they have, they don't happen to have a payment, or it's summertime and they aren't paying for heat, and so they got a little bit more left at the end of the month, that month, and they said, well, your $2,000 in income counts as your asset now. You're not eligible for anything. But I just got the money. Now, if I have that income left on the first day of the next month, then it becomes an asset. So that $2,000 that is, I can subtract the income from on the 30th or the 31st of the month, on the first day of the month is all countable, okay? But then after the deposit's made again, I take out that income, and that's my net deposit, okay? So we're looking always at the net after income has been subtracted, and we only have to prove one day. So you go to the lowest balance or the last day of the month, because that's usually when we're going to have the least amount of income or assets left. Subtract off the income. Now they can't go negative. The best they can do is zero on a checking account. So, I have $700 left in my checking account, but my Social Security is $800. I have a zero amount in that savings or checking account, not a negative 100, okay? So it can't offset the $1,500 that we have in the savings account.
Linda, we had a typed-in question.
Okay.
What if he designated $500 for burial? It would reduce his assets below the $2,000? I guess that's a question.
Yeah, and they could do that too. Creative accounting, but you still want to take and make it a separate account. It has to be a separate account. Again, it can't be commingled with everything else. So if he wants to take the $1,500, separate it into two savings accounts, one $500 designated as a burial fund, the $1,000 is still his, emergency cash, and then whatever he has in his checking account, absolutely. That works the same as if you were to designate the whole amount of the $1,500. Okay, I really was thinking about that just so that you know that they have that option of designating an account for a burial fund. Okay. Up to 1,500. Up to 1,500, no more. Okay. So the answer here is add care and full Medicaid, because we're going to exclude the savings account as a burial fund. You have the qualified Medicare beneficiary, retroactive Medicaid to help with any recent copays or deductibles of his Medicare. And then the next question is, and you guys already know this, what month will George QMB begin?
First month after the month of qualifying.
Right, first month after the month of processing. So in that situation, he applied on June 25th. The worker has all the information and processes on July 11th, and in this situation, August 1st. Okay, so it's the month following the month of processing, regardless of what that is, whether it's the full 45 days or not. Now keep one more thing on that, and it will happen, not very much, but it will happen. Let's say they process it on the 15th of August. What, is that over the standard of promptness? Yeah, it's over the 45 days for sure. What does that make it? An administrative error.
It goes back.
The client cannot be penalized for the inaction of the caseworker. So in that situation, if they were to look at the application date, add 45 days, okay, then they have to start at the beginning of the month after the 45 days. So that's the worst case scenario, is that we can make them go back and give them the eligibility back to, say, the 1st of August or whenever they apply. But it's a matter of, they can't be late in processing the application and then say, just suck it up. That's not, it can't be punitive to the beneficiary. They have to make it right, okay? Okay. What to do? 20. Martha, age 69, lives with her son and his family. This is Mo's question here. She likes living with her family, but really needs some help with her health care expenses. She only gets about $972 a month in Social Security. Her neighbor told her that she wouldn't qualify for help because she lived with her son. She calls MAP and asks what other programs might be available to her. What programs would you encourage her to apply for, and who must be included in her application group?
Everybody should be included in her.
Group one.
He's one, group one. He's eligible for everything.
Yep, she's eligible for AdCare, she is eligible for QMB, and Martha is a group of one. Doesn't matter if, she's living with a son and the fam, it doesn't matter, because she is a group of one, based upon the policy for aged and disabled individuals. Even though they live with other people, their income is not hers.
I have a question. You say she's eligible for AdCare, meaning Medicaid,
Yes,
and QMB, but if you're Medicaid, you get all this anyways, right? So you don't get QMB on top of that?
She doesn't understand why there's two designations, why is this not considered AdCare?
Thank you.
AdCare is a Medicaid category, QMB is a totally different program. It covers co-pays and deductibles, of Medicare and the Part B premium. AdCare covers health care that is like, let's say, hearing, dental, vision. That's not covered by Medicare.
Well, you have here, Medicare premium is paid by AdCare, Medicare copays.
No, it's not paid by AdCare.
Oh, then this is wrong.
Okay, AdCare, you automatically qualify for QMB, but QMB is the program by which Medicare Part B premiums are paid.
But you don't have to apply for them both.
No, you apply for one.
One, and then
You apply for, in theory, if you're applying for a Medicaid category, whether it happens to be AdCare or some Medicare savings program, of the 30 different categories, they're supposed to determine which is the most beneficial category based upon your situation, income and assets, okay? So in this situation, we know that she doesn't have over 100% of federal poverty level for income. And so at that point, we know she should be AdCare, we know she should be QMB. The only programs that have automatic QMB are, and again, this is only a nice to know stuff here. If you're a DAC, anybody heard of DAC? Disabled Adult Child category? Doesn't happen very often, but there are some. And these are situations where individuals who were previously SSI eligible became ineligible for SSI because a parent either died or started drawing Social Security, and now that individual becomes a beneficiary of that account. And that's only when you've got a disabled adult child, and they usually have to be disabled before age 18, and it's just more information than you need to know. Yes.
So, since QMB pays the deductible, they go to the doctor bills Medicare. Who does the doctor bill for Medicare copay? Medicaid?
It's actually handled in a crossover claim.
Actually, what happens is they bill the patient, but I mean, what should happen?
Well, they shouldn't be billing any QMB beneficiary. I don't care whether they have the $5,000 in their account. If they're a QMB beneficiary, the beneficiary should never be balance billed. So in a situation where we've got Medicare paying 80% of a doctor visit, okay, there's the 20% that would normally be billed to Medicaid, and they'll say, well, we don't take Medicaid. It doesn't matter. Federal regulations and under Medicare, even if they have QMB, and even if the provider doesn't accept Medicaid, they cannot, by federal law, bill the beneficiary. If you find one of those, you need to take it.
And so who do they bill? Medicaid?
They suck it up.
Oh.
They suck it up.
But
That's their agreement with Medicare. That's the contract that they made. When they said, we'll accept Medicare beneficiaries, even though they shielded themselves and said, we're not taking any Medicaid beneficiaries, because of the contract that they have with Medicare, because they have said, we'll accept Medicare beneficiaries, but when they are a QMB beneficiary, they're also prohibited from billing that 20% back to the beneficiary. That's an easy one to say.
they can refuse to
They can.
Yeah, they can. There's nothing in the rules to say that because they've been a patient in the past, they can do it. We had a situation where, at the beginning of the year, somebody had $83 Part B deductible, and they said, until you prove you've got your deductible somewhere else, we're not gonna see them.
What?
Yeah. And we contacted CMS on it, and they said there's nothing that prohibits them from limiting their access to the provider until they've met the, because basically they're looking at it and saying, we don't want to suck up this first $183 because they were a QMB beneficiary.
Yeah, that question came out.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, and I was like, well, hey.
Yeah. Question, John?
I thought if you were a provider, you would agree to Medicare assignment.
No. That's the clarification that we got directly from CMS, is that they are not required to take them.
So, what do they have to do?
They go to another provider.
I'm a provider, and I say, and someone calls me up and says, you take Medicare assignment, and I say, yup. Then they come in the door and I go, no.
Well, they still accept Medicare assignment, but at the same time, they don't have to see that beneficiary, and being a QMB, they don't have to take that and end up basically going on a loss. The fee screens for Medicare and Medicaid are ridiculous. I don't know if you, how many of you are on Medicare now? You ever looked at your MSNs, your own MSNs?
Yeah.
You've seen what it is? Shame on you. The MSNs will tell you what they're paying, okay?
Yeah.
And so at that point, you know that, $100 office visit, you may be getting $46.
Yeah.
And then they have to write off the difference between what they charge and what is reasonable for Medicare to pay, and then they've got the 20% above that. Now they're not only sucking up the discount that Medicare is not going to pay, but they're also sucking up the Medicare co-payment because they're a QMB. So out of the $100, they're going to get 46. It's hardly enough to pay for their office and staff. So that's why you're finding more and more reluctancy to accept Medicare and Medicaid beneficiaries.
But they have to do that in advance.
I don't even know that there's an advance.
They don't treat the patient.
They just don't see the patient.
They then no longer have the ability to balance bill. So then they have to have some sort of screening ahead of time.
I mean, that's just something that's going to be in their process, but at the same time, it's not a matter of you call up and ask for an appointment, and they say, well, are you QMB? And if they say, you say yes, and they say, well, we're not accepting QMB beneficiaries right now. Or,
and that would be Medicaid too.
Yeah.
Because you're saying Medicaid doesn't actually cover, so this part is wrong, it's just the QMB part that covers the copay and deductible.
Right, it's the QMB eligibility. I'm AdCare, but I don't have Medicaid, or AdCare, but I don't have Medicare, then, Medicare is going to cover the whole bill, or the percentage based up to the amount within the fee screen. But when there's a Medicare and Medicaid, AdCare, QMB is automatic. So if I go to a provider, they're going to get the payment for the bill from Medicare. But if Medicare is going to pay less than or the same as what Medicaid will pay, Medicaid's not going to pay anything. But the QMB in the Medicare contract actually prohibits the Medicare provider from going back and billing that beneficiary for whatever the difference is between what they actually got paid and what the charge was.
But I have people who have been billed like that.
Well, then you aren't calling me, are you? No. And again, when you find out about a QMB beneficiary, generally that's an easy one. There is, I'm trying to think of it's the same newsletter that if I'm a Medicare provider, I get each month. And it comes out annually, and it says, warning, do not bill beneficiaries if they are QMB eligible. It's against the rules. You can't do it. You either have to opt out of Medicare totally, all right, or you have to write it off because you can't bill the beneficiary.
Oh, you can refuse to have them as patients.
You can refuse to have them as
Okay.
patients.
But after you've seen them, you can't
can't.
bill them.
You can't bill them, right?
You just have to take what Medicare pays you and keep.
Yep, yep.
I've never had a client that said, I'm full Medicaid, oh, I have to announce to a fee. In their mind.
But they can, the thing is, the provider can see that before they
Yeah.
understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we've got another question.
Okay, all right, go ahead,
Why is it some doctors accept straight Medicaid, but not other types? Are they referring to QMB?
no, okay. The question here is, other, types of Medicaid, and what they're talking about here is your health plan. You know, when somebody has Medicaid only, they're often enrolled in a Medicaid health plan.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that have contracted with the Department of Health and Human Services to provide Medicaid services through an HMO or a PPO. Medicaid says, here, we're gonna give you $250 a month, and now all the expenses of that person's health care is now your responsibility. You manage that $250 to take care of the thousands of people that you've enrolled into your HMO and PPO or PPR. And the thing is everybody gonna go get health care in the same month? No. Okay, so they're gambling on that. They're knowing how to invest the money. They're knowing how to control the flow. So they agree to take so many Medicaid beneficiaries, and so they get payment every month from the state of Michigan to be the Medicaid Medicaid health plan for those individuals. They will take Medicaid fee-for-service or Medicaid outside of a health plan, and that's not a problem for them. But the health plan, what it is because they are controlling the bottom line, they may not pay as much as Medicaid would pay them in what we call fee-for-service. So let's say the fee-for-service, it means straight Medicaid, original Medicaid, however you have learned that term. But let's say they'll pay $50 of an office call for somebody in straight Medicaid. But if I'm in a Medicaid health plan, I'm only going to get probably $40 because the health plan wants to get some of their money out of it too. So it's that extra layer. So the provider's going to get $40, and I'm not going to give up that $10. I'm just not going to see people in that health plan.
So do you have the option of not taking those health plan? You can just stay in the Medicaid because usually when you get Medicaid, they give you the health plan. You have to.
Right. You don't really have an option.
Yeah.
There are some exceptions, like for instance, and it is something that is granted on a case-by-case basis. So let's say I'm a disabled person, and I have some particular specialists that are not going to be in the network of any of the health plans, or would not compare to that. They can ask for an exception. I know one of the other exceptions here is if you have a pregnant woman because of a relationship with an OBGYN. Let's say if I started with an OBGYN at the beginning of my pregnancy, I get Medicaid for my pregnancy, and then they can't make me change to a different OBGYN in the middle of my pregnancy. But that, again, is a small scope of the situation. It's a small one. Once you get Medicare, you don't have to enroll in any kind of health plan.
Oh, you
don't
Medicaid. So if you're dual eligible, you mean you have a Medicare and Medicaid, then you don't have to enroll there?
Because Medicare is primary.
Right, but you gotta find a doctor to bill.
Not under.
That's over 65.
Under age of 65, you have to.
As long as you got Medicare. So if I'm a disabled person, let's say I'm 46, I've got Medicare and I've got Medicaid. Again, I don't have to because Medicare is primary here. Bulk of the expense is going to be covered by Medicare, right? Not by Medicaid. So they don't have anything to gain by paying $250 or $500 or whatever that stipend is that they pay to the health plan to cover somebody for a percentage of what their health care costs will be. So they're not going to bother them. They're going to let them be in a standalone or original Medicare and Medicaid. And they don't have to be enrolled. As long as they're Medicare and Medicaid.
So people here, the person stay on their full Medicaid or straight Medicaid rather than.
Yeah. Let's just say that for me, if I've got two options here, I can go to a plan that will let me go to any doctor anytime, as long as they accept that plan. Or I've got this over here that says, these are the 5 doctors you can see, and, you know, these are the only, you have to get a referral to see a specialist. Am I going to take the one that restricts me, or the one that I can use to see whoever it is I need to see? Okay? That's the common sense of it. I can enroll. Nothing is prohibiting them from enrolling, but nothing requires them to enroll. Okay?
We've got about 7 minutes left to be respectful of everybody's time getting home.
All right. All right. Let's do this. I'm assuming all of you can read, so you can finish up the questions on the PowerPoint. And what I want to do is briefly go over the LIS application. How many of you do on a regular basis LIS? Okay. You probably do it online.
Yes.
Keep in mind the beneficiary can call Social Security and apply. They can also call and ask for an application email. I think I don't know why, but they put an application on there, but it says you can't use it as an application.
Yeah, what's that about?
I don't know. You know, you can at least preview that and look at it and go, oh, that's what the questions that they're going to ask, okay?
Package,
No, we don't have.
No. But, I mean, it's on the Social Security website. If you go to the Social Security website, look for the extra help, there, it'll show you, they call it instructions. Okay?
How often is it certified by the CHS, the LIS station? How often is it?
How often do they certify?
Yes.
As soon as there's a data exchange done with Social Security, every night. Okay, so somebody gets approved for Medicaid tonight, or tonight, when nobody's on the system doing eligibility determination, the information goes over to SSA. It takes a couple of days to get through there to certify it, but at the same time, nightly exchanges are done with.
What about for you for next year? They do it every year?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they pull that data. For somebody who's on a Medicaid deductible, if you know that they qualify sometime between July and December, they're eligible for the LIS for all of the future years. Anybody, who knew that? Anybody? Okay, good job. So like for instance, on our Medicaid deductible people, if we know that, you know, and I actually had a conversation earlier this year with one, they met their deductible by actually going and getting some of the supplies and things that they needed for a long period of time that would meet the deductible in the month of October. Turned in the expenses, worker didn't do it right, so that caused a problem, and that's why he contacted me. But all he had to do was meet the deductible in the month of October, and that gave him LIS for the entire 2018. One time, they have to meet a Medicaid deductible. So even if they're excess income normally for LIS, it's meeting that deductible in that 1 month, whether it's a hospitalization, accumulation of expenses that are unpaid, okay, or expenses that are incurred all in 1 month that total at least the deductible amount or greater, okay. I think we've gone through some of the, on the DHS 1171, the new combined application, the health care coverage, we've kind of gone through that a little bit. It is, I don't know which page it is now, but where it says health care coverage information, does anyone have any expenses in the last 3 months, whether it's Medicaid only or for Medicaid or Medicare savings program, make sure that you check the retro. Those Cindy and all these people that are going to love you for that. Is anyone currently enrolled in health coverage, even if not applying? And then we're finding a lot of your HMP, and whoever was asking about HMP transitions, sorry, but, you know, that may be one of those future things that we get to. They'll just have to send me a invitation, okay? But this is where we can put in that Medicare information. It's so important to have the Medicare information on there.
What page are you on?
It's one of the health care coverage. It's after your notes page from the 1171. Okay.
Okay.
And it talks about health care coverage.
Okay.
And that's where underneath there, if you go down another couple of, underneath the second box, there's one box here, gray box, And then the second gray box, and it says, if Medicare, you want help paying your Part B premiums, yes or no?
Right, okay.
Make sure those are all filled out. The application registration, on one of the first pages, make sure that you check there that you're looking for health care. It gets generic at that point, because again, they don't want to, because how are you going to guess what program you're going to be eligible out of 30? I mean, there's just no way, okay?
They don't have to sign both pages, though, do they,
That first page?
Yeah, isn't it just so they can get immediate food assistance?
Well, yeah, but this also potentially sets a date for you. Let's say I don't have time, I can fill out this page, sign it, date it, I've at least set a date for an application.
Oh.
I still have to finish the rest of it, but at least it seals my date, okay? So it can be used for that. Expenses. Does anyone in your household have pay for medical expenses? Health insurance, co-pays, prescriptions, that kind of thing. Now, I will tell you that more of this is going to depend, is more important for food assistance. Any kind of medical expense that an individual has out of pocket, if they're eligible for a food assistance program, encourage them to send in receipts each month. So let's say I pay $50 in co-pays when I get my prescription drugs, and then I have my premiums they don't ask for monthly, but send them in. $50 is out of your pocket. It won't give them $50 for the food assistance, but it will change their benefit.
And in those situations where the hospital has not billed them for the care, and they might not get a bill for 4 months later, how does that get adjusted if you don't have those to show?
You turn them in when you get them.
And then it'll go back to the date that you did the application?
Well, are you talking about for
retroactive coverage.
For retroactive coverage? Yeah. You just tell them at that point you didn't know you had the medical expense, you asked for the retro as long as you haven't been through a redetermination. Okay, so they applied in June, we get a bill in September. We didn't know we had that bill coming when we applied in June, so we can still go back and to submit a retroactive Medicaid application and have them determine eligibility for the 3 months prior to the month of application. So June, we get an answer, March, April, May.
I know that, but if it's beyond that 3 month period of time, they can only go back 3 months?
No, because it's application. An application is different than if I have a medical expense. Let's say I'm already on a Medicaid deductible, because that's the only time, because if I've got a medical expense now, and I'm on AdCare, I just tell them, because they got 12 months to bill the hospital has 12 months to bill Medicaid. But if I am actually I'm a Medicaid deductible, and I have a medical expense, and I get it, and let's say I didn't turn it in, more that I didn't get billed for it, but I didn't turn it in. And then I go, you know what? I should have turned that in. If you get past that, let's say it's a Medicaid deductible, my eligibility month is June, and I wait until December and ask for them to go back, they can't go back that far. They can use it as an old bill, but again, that's a whole different course.
We need you for a week.
A week, okay.
At least.
One by one.
Some of this can be covered in Lansing at the Medicare?
Probably won't be.
Okay.
I want to do one last thing, and I guess, this is going to be real quick. Now, as far as this is concerned, a Medicaid deductible or a Medicaid retroactive one, make sure that you go all the way down for each month. So I fill in March, and I put in the person's name, and then I answer no, and then I keep going down just this row for that month.
Okay.
And then I do the same thing for the next month, okay? But if I'm only applying for 2 months, I only have to do 2 rows. I put in March and April. I don't need May, okay? 2 months I go down. And you can't, my favorite one was they'd always go, squiggly line, nothing, no. Squiggly line does not work, okay? Check it, no, okay? So that's always important. Make sure you fill it out completely for each month or each question, okay? If it doesn't apply to the individual, then the answer is no. So in a situation where it says veterans benefit, It'll get veterans benefits. The answer is no. But a squiggly line does not replace no.
But if you're not gonna do a whole month, can you put a big cross, or you just leave it all blank?
You just put in your header here that you're only applying for that 1 month.
Okay.
You use it for 1 month, you can use it for all 3 months, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
How do you do the assets? How do you, the assets would be the same, if they're the same for each month?
No, you're gonna pull your bank statement. You got your bank statement, you're gonna have to support that with the bank statement.
So we need 3 months of bank statement.
Correct.
Basically.
You're gonna need 3 months of bank statements. So you're gonna use that lowest balance after you've subtracted the income, okay?
But things like funeral contracts,
It's not gonna change.
real estate, that will all be the same
But make sure you put it in each
for
3
each
months.
month. Okay.
Because I can't assume that if you had it in the month of March, that you still had it in the month of April and May, okay? Generally, people aren't gonna dispose of something like that. So who says that they wouldn't have, okay? We still have to have an answer. Now, this is the last one. Get out your pen. I want you to write this down because this is where you're gonna refer to if you have this come up. How many of you have been, working with a beneficiary and they get the verification checklist and there's like 3 days left before the deadline? All the time. Redetermination, same thing. All right. You're gonna want to look at Bridges Administrative Manual, 130, page 8.
Page 8, 130.
BAM, 130, page 8. I'm just gonna read you this. It's for Medicaid only. And it says, if the client cannot provide the verification despite a reasonable effort, extend the time limit up to 2 times. Now, they can do it twice for 10 days each. So let's say you get 10 days in the initial period, but you didn't get the notice until the 8th day that they needed to turn it in on the 10th day. You ask at that point for an extension. You can get 10 days from that date. Okay, so essentially we're up to 18 days now. Okay, maybe you needed to request verification of cash surrender value from a life insurance policy. The life insurance company's not going to get it to you in time. It is a matter of you just haven't had enough time because you just got the verification checklist. At that point, you can ask for that 10-day extension. I can't ask for it after the deadline date. I have to ask for it before.
How do you do that if they won't answer their phone?
Yeah.
How do you cover your actions?
Email.
Email. Email.
Okay, and if you've ever seen a DHS letter, there's on the letter.
They don't all have it. They don't all have the email address. They are not putting it on most of their.
Yeah, they are. They're automatically put on.
No,
they're not there. Even I have the latest one, there's not. Just the name is there.
Right.
Really? Say this again?
It's that name at the top at michigan.gov.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, for instance, mine would say Kushner L. And that's what it would say about me as a worker, Kushner L.
Okay.
That's all it will say. All I have to do is add @michigan.gov.
Yeah.
That's their email.
It's their last name and their first initial.
And sometimes the number.
Yeah, sometimes the number.
Well, that's right. So how do you know what the number is?
It's going to say that out there. It'll say Johnson B. 16.
Oh,
Yeah, but if it's, so we have to go to the website to find it if it's not on their form.
If you don't have their form and you know their name and you know the office they're out of, it's easy to look up.
Yeah,
Unless
there is a separate website that identifies all state employees with a phone number and an email address.
But it only gives
But
you
it's
20
encrypted.
answers, so if
Yeah,
you do get Johnson,
you can't put in there, Johnson A, and expect you're gonna get an answer. You're probably gonna get, way too many because there's Arthur and, Adele and all these other people that are gonna fit into that A Johnson more than it will sort for. But if you got a letter from the beneficiary, even if let's say, you know the county, okay, you at least know the county. So you know it's Macomb County. And you have a worker by the last name of Kushner. You call up the county office and you say, something like, what is her phone number? And that kind of thing. You can often find out what the first initial is by that, or put this is the other trick I've had some people use. You call the number and then you get their, voicemail message. They might go, this is, Ms. B. Johnson.
Or they may go, this is Lulu.
Well,
And you know, they tell you, you must say it, spell it, be clear, and they go, Lulu.
Yeah, well, can't change that. But it is a situation where if you can narrow it down by a first initial, you can try to search that. You know, it's
But
not a
the-
perfect system, and of course, just with any common name, that's gonna be an issue.
But the office director's name's on the website, and you can always find there.
One thing, Doctor, if the change the system now, they have got to do no work there anymore.
Right,